All right, by my watch, it's 7:13 p.m. It's Wednesday, January 25. So let's call this meeting to order. Meeting of our select board. We're in the smaller room this evening, so hopefully everybody's a little more cozy. And as we always do at the start of our meetings, let's invite everyone to join us in saluting our flag with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So those of you in the room can see that we're short a couple of members of our board this evening. Mr. Mackey was not able to attend. But we are in the presence of Mr. Kratman, who's joining us virtually. So those of you in the back of the room can't see him, but be assured that he can hear everything and he will be a full participant in this meeting. Under the Massachusetts open meeting law, because we have a member of the board that is not physically present, that will require that any votes we take tonight will be done by roll call, so I will be asking each individual member what their vote is as we take any votes throughout the proceeding. We have a number of topics to discuss tonight. The first 4 of them actually pertain to Treehouse Brewing Company, and we'll address those in the order that they are posted on the agenda. And I expect that there are a number of people in the room who are here to talk about or listen to discussion on that topic. These are all public hearings, so I promise you I will give you an ample opportunity to speak and ask any questions that you have. We're going to first ask for the proponent to give us an explanation of what they're looking for. The board members, including Mr. Kratman, may have some questions or comments. And then we'll come around to residents that have interest in the topic and they'll have an opportunity to speak. I'm going to ask, if you do, to come up to the podium here. Understand there's no microphone on the podium. The microphones on the tables, I'm told, will capture your words. I just ask that you speak loud enough for the equipment to do so that people watching and listening who aren't in the room can hear what you're saying. And I would ask, and I'll repeat this, that all your comments should be directed to one person in the room, and that is me. I will ask for responses, okay? In order to maintain order within the meeting, we've had a long-standing tradition of managing our meetings that way. So I'll ask for your cooperation in doing that, and I'll also ask that you be right to the point. If you have a question, let's get right to it. Okay? All right. So the first item we have is a public hearing on an alteration of premises at Fort Treehouse Brewing. And it involves the expansion of the on-premises consumption areas. This is a posted hearing. I'm going to avoid the need to take a roll call vote, so I'm going to read the hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that the board, the select board, will conduct a public hearing in accord with Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, on Wednesday, January 25, 2023, at 7 p.m. at Town Hall in Tewksbury on the application by Treehouse Brewing Company, Inc., for the alteration of premises to extend the Section 19C, subsection N, pouring permit premises to include the entire clubhouse building except the brewery production area and Section 19E, farmer distillery premises, the adjacent patio areas, golf course, and 2-story pro shop and grill building. And as I just stated a moment ago, input is welcome from the public, and we ask that comments be submitted in writing if that was possible beforehand. So with that having been said, let me ask those at this table to please introduce yourselves and your affiliation with Treehouse so that the record is
Yes,
complete.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So for the record, Mark Borenstein, an attorney at the law firm of Bowditch and Dewey in Worcester, representing Treehouse Brewing Company.
Thanks, Counsel.
Sarah Maggiorn, Chief of Staff, Treehouse Brewing Company.
Welcome.
Allison Maisley, Regulatory Specialist for Treehouse.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So, Counselor, I assume you'll probably be
Yeah.
the lead spokesperson here, and I'd
Sure.
ask if you could maybe give us an explanation of this first topic.
Certainly. So before I delve into the slide deck, just to prepare the select board, we also have the 19H alteration of premises that we'll discuss after. So I'm going to probably touch on 19H a little bit. So just keep that in mind as, I don't know if you want to open that hearing as well, but we're going to be talking about both within the context because they're kind of married to one another.
Okay. Let me ask my colleagues, do you have a preference on that?
I think it makes sense to
That's-
put both.
That's
All right.
fine.
Okay. Thank you for that. One moment.
Yep.
Okay? I'm going to read another hearing notice, okay? And you'll understand this in a moment. Notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a public hearing in accord with Mass General Law, Chapter 138, again on Wednesday, July 25 at 7 p.m. at Town Hall in Tewksbury on the application of Treehouse Brewing Company, Inc. for the alteration of premises licensed under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 19C, subsection N, to pour malt beverages and distilled spirits throughout its on-premises consumption areas pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 19H. Okay? So we have, we're going to operate with two concurrent hearings being discussed at the same time. Now, before you go on, there's a question, just speak, raise your question.
Mr. Johnson, questions. People back here can't see the presentation.
I understand. I'm not sure that we can do much about that, other than to ask if they want to see it, they can stand over here, or maybe turn the TV. I don't know if we can do that.
It's fine with us.
Yeah,
We also can make it.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you need to be?
Yeah.
we
You
can
got your
move,
slides in
we can
advance.
move if we have to, yeah. Let's see if we can do that. Some of you on the left side, you're right, are gonna have difficulty, but,
Good.
all right?
All right.
Okay?
Down next to you.
All right.
Come on over, Tom.
I think I have it, so I'm gonna follow on my phone.
Okay. That makes everything on your phone a public record, dear.
Nah, I'll do it. That's all right. Counselor, why don't you?
Okay. So
Give us-
I know that the
Public
hours
record is bad.
getting late. So thank you, members of the select board for meeting with us this evening to hear this application. You'll recall that in the fall we appeared before you seeking 3 approvals. So one being the farmer brewery pouring permit in the basement level of the building, a farmer distillery pouring permit, and then the 19H allow the service of both throughout. So these types of applications have been before you before. As you indicated, Mr. Chair, this is an alteration of the premises to further expand. And so the reason why we're seeking this expansion now as opposed to in the fall was, as you'll recall, there was an operation, Tewksbury Country Club. They had prior obligations. They needed to maintain their Section 12 license. You can't have 2 areas licensed at the same time. So Treehouse Brewing Company purchased the property without understanding that they were going to conclude their events for the year, and then Treehouse was going to seek the alteration. So you recall in the fall, we indicated that we were going to be applying as soon as that was possible, so hence the application right after the first of the year. In addition, you'll recall that in the fall, we indicated that we were going to also apply to do the alteration of premises to extend to the golf course and the adjacent patio areas. In consultation with the ABCC, it was determined that we could also include the 2 Mac Tavern. So that's the application that's before you this evening. So essentially, the first application itself, Richard might be able to just go through some of the slides here. So we're very familiar with the facility. So just to orient the select board, you might be very familiar with the
Yeah.
property, but just to just make sure we're all on the same page. Clubhouse is in the center. That's where we previously had the pouring permits. We're now expanding to the first and second floor. We're also expanding to the patio areas, the 2 Mac Tavern, and the golf course. So Rich, if you go to the next slide. So these are the applications that are before you this evening. Rich, next slide, please. So this was the area that was previously licensed. This was kind of the activity area. Rich, next slide, please. This was the 466 square foot area for on-premises consumption area adjacent to the brewery premises. And to the north of that is the 106 square foot distillery retail sales area. Rich, next slide, please. So it's important to understand that the distillery premises aren't changing. Those are staying as they are in the basement. It's the 19CN, the Farmer Series pouring permit for the brewery, that's expanding to include the entire property. So the entire property will be considered part of the brewery premises, which is required under Massachusetts law. That's been approved by the TTB. The application is pending before the ABCC, and we anticipate it will be approved in the coming weeks. So this approval is subject, obviously, to that state approval as well. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed layout of the interior of the clubhouse building.
Oh, too fast.
Oop, go back there, thanks. So we have the main hall, lounge area, retail store. There's interior modifications to the property, but generally, the use that we're proposing is consistent with what was previously at the property, right? So you had on-premises consumption at this facility, you had the golf course, Treehouse will continue to operate the golf course. Really, the only modification that we're seeing here is the addition of to-go sales, which is not part of the discussion this evening. That's already been approved by the state, and that's already existing.
And just for clarity, there's no pouring in the to-go building, right?
Correct. So we're proposing to pour in the Tumac Tavern and the clubhouse. So you'll see in the center there, oops, sorry, go back there. There's the kitchen area, pizza kitchen area, which we'll speak to the common victular license after. But Treehouse will be preparing pizza at this facility, which if anybody's been to Deerfield, it's fantastic pizza, craft-made pizza, and that'll be a great addition to the on-premises consumption. So this is the interior layout of the first floor. First, go to the next slide, please. This is the layout of the second floor. So we have a private event space, bar areas, the lookout area, and there's also the outdoor porch area. Next slide, please, Rich. This is the layout of the Tumac Tavern. There's really no interior modifications that are proposed to that. It's already being operated under the special one-day liquor license, and will continue in this fashion. Next slide, please, Rich. So the additions in terms of understanding the on-premises sales, Treehouse will be utilizing a temporary structure, if you will, basically a shipping container to help people serve folks on the golf course. Treehouse is very careful and very adamant that there would be responsible sales on premises. Treehouse has a great track record, as indicated by the letters that we received from the town managers from the other towns that Treehouse currently operates in. Very strict in terms of the amount of pours that are available. And so there will be on-premises consumption in the buildings themselves. This will also provide an opportunity for folks to enjoy beer on the golf course or a ready-to consume cocktail. Next slide, please, Rich.
Counselor, let me just interrupt you there and ask a question. The last time you were here, you have, I think it's a 3-drink limit per customer. Does that apply on the golf course? And is it separate and distinct or the same?
So it's contemplated this time to be separate because you're gonna spend a few hours on the golf course. But the reason why we're permitting the golf course's consumption area is strictly for responsible alcohol consumption. The number one complaint that Treehouse gets is that we limit consumption. Like that is what people complain about, that we are hard and fast. Ally and I get carded, we work there, we can only have the set number. It's really putting this out here and doing this specific service is to make sure that people aren't bringing their own and stuffing their bags. And so we will have that if you come to visit the tap room, you'll have that 3 max, and then if you're on the golf course, you can have drinks associated with that, but all with the strictest controls.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, as you'll see here on the slide deck, there's an aluminum bottle. And this is pretty special, this will be specific only to Tewksbury. This bottle doesn't exist at any other Treehouse facility. And the idea behind this is there will be a ranger, if you will, that Treehouse will employ, who will be on the golf course monitoring what people are consuming. If they're not drinking out of that bottle, they're not drinking a Treehouse authorized beer, and there will be ramifications. So this will help them police the amount of alcohol consumption on the course. And that bottle will be only on the golf course. People can't take those bottles from inside the facility and bring them out to the golf course. So they're able to monitor the amount of alcohol that's being consumed that way. And so it's a pretty cool addition to that's very specific to Tewksbury. So I think with that, that provides additional assurances regarding safety. Most folks have played golf, who enjoy golf. If there is on-premises consumption, they might buy beer at the facility, at the clubhouse, if you will. Sometimes people bring their own beers. That may happen at other facilities, but at Treehouse, they're going to be pretty strict in terms of the controls. So with that, we have no further questions regarding this portion of the application. So
On the temporary structure of the
yes.
the box that you mentioned, do you have an idea where that's going to be located yet?
I think it's going to vary depending on the location. I think some months, sometimes it will be one tee box or one portion of the golf course. And the beauty of it being a temporary structure, it's not fixed, right? It's not, there's no foundation. They can move it throughout the course, depending on what the needs are. So they might find that folks aren't looking for beer at this particular hole. They might want to move it to a different, hole. I mean, it provides a certain level of flexibility.
And you're not going to be adding any other mode of sales, like often on a golf course, they have a cart going around. That's not part of your.
This is all part of the controls for responsible alcohol service.
Very
So,
good.
you may get your beer to start off your round, and then halfway through, you'll
Mhm.
only be able to get this one more.
Okay.
And just it bears repeating, this bottle doesn't exist anywhere. We don't have bottles, like aluminum bottles in Treehouse anywhere, which makes it really fun if you come to golf in Tewksbury, that you get this. But you couldn't pull into our to-go sales area and buy this and then just take, 6 of them on the course. You'd only maximum be able to get 2 of these out there.
Okay, very good. Okay, is that the end of that?
Yeah, that's
PowerPoint?
the
Okay.
next slide deck.
So I'm going to move back over now. All right. Council, do you have any other comments about alteration of premises or the expansion of flooring?
Nope, we're happy to
Okay.
answer any questions that the board may have.
Yep, so let me turn to my colleagues. Let me first ask Mr. Kratman, since he's remote, if he has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I do. The box that will move from hole to hole, I just have a couple of concerns that you can move it to any hole. The 8th and 9th hole are right along residents' homes. Are those gonna be considered to put that next to their homes while you're doing it, or is it gonna be out further on the course on locations where, away from the residents? I could just see people idling there, a couple of groups, congregating there, and then where those locations are, will there be facilities for picking up, debris, so that there's not something that's left on the edge of the golf
Yep.
course near the people's homes?
All right, let's get an answer, so.
It will not be near homes, though, and not near 8 and 9. I think, forgive us if we mischaracterize, it's not gonna pop around and you're not gonna go, where is the cart today?
Yeah.
It's just, it is mobile. It is meant to be nowhere near anyone's home, and there's several holes on the course. I can't give you a solid one yet, because we're working with the designers on that, but halfway through, 5 or 6.
I assume you were able to hear that, Mr. Kratman?
I was able to hear part of it. just
Okay.
some.
And,
So-
But I'm taking that they're saying, no, it won't be on those holes, and yes, there'll be people cleaning it up.
yes, absolutely, and we already have employed our superintendent. We mentioned there'll be a ranger, and if you go to any of our facilities, we take our grounds very, very seriously. So we assure you it will be in good condition.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other questions, Mr. Kratman?
No, I'm good on this, for this subject.
Okay, very good, thank you. Let me turn to those in the room. Do either of you have questions? Ms. Wellman, you want to lead us off there?
Some of my questions encompass other parts of your application that we didn't touch on,
Sure.
not the common vic. I'll get to that in a bit.
Or entertainment?
We're
We'll get
entertainment.
to that
Yes,
later.
sir, yes,
Okay.
we'll take them in order. But regarding golf reservations, you didn't ever talk about that? Are you gonna do kind of the same idea that you're doing with online reservations?
Yes, there'll be.
So people will make their
reservations.
plans in advance
Yeah.
and know
We-
when they're coming.
We like things to be really relaxed, and it's not gonna be people bumping up against you. We like to take it easy, so, but it will be reservation system.
And I heard you mention you'll have a ranger and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's great. With regarding to the alteration of the premises, I don't know, yeah, maybe Mark can mute himself. I don't know if
Thank
that's
you.
what that is. So, with regard to alteration of the premises, I love the concepts that you have, the speakeasy, the outlook, some of the private spaces upstairs. Are you going to have any of these spaces be available for rental or for community usage?
So, we do a
For
number,
events, yeah.
we do a number of events for, community throughout the year. We haven't really have that in or seen what, the need will be
Sure.
at this time.
Okay.
It is not going to be a wedding venue or
No.
the type of use that perhaps people were used to under Tewksbury Country Club.
Right.
So we are certainly a place of assembly, and you can expect, not a great change in that. But if you're asking if it's, going to be a private event center, certainly there will be time for that, and we would love that, but
Okay.
really, Treehouse is accessible to everyone, we invite everyone in, we tend, want the community to come in, so we try not to make it exclusive or say, you guys, we're only using it for pharmaceutical sales meetings or
Right,
things
right,
like
no,
that.
I
It's
understand.
just, everyone's.
Well, one thing that we hear a lot from the residents is, and you're, I'm sure, certainly aware of this by now, is there's, it's been a heavily used space in the community for special events, and public events that are related, that are not, weddings and so forth. So it's an important space in the community, so I know there's interest for that, which is why I asked the question.
And that's wonderful, and we actually have.
Plus, I want to have my birthday party.
So we do do certain room rentals across each of our locations, and we
Okay.
now have a senior events manager that's come on that is planning all sorts of different things, community activations, special events. And so as we get our feet under us, we can expect that to be an option. And we do hope that you celebrate your birthday with us.
I appreciate the answer, thank you. I noticed that your estimated opening time is in May. Does that sound about right?
That's our hope.
For that building to
Yeah.
open, so you'll continue to serve out of the tavern, provided
So-
everything gets approved?
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to.
Yeah,
speak to-
so in terms of the actual sales, once this, if we're fortunate and the select board will grant the approvals this evening, we'll then transmit it to the ABCC.
Sure.
Fortunately, they've already reviewed the state application or in the process of reviewing the state application. It's pretty much identical to this application. So we anticipate that it would be approved in pretty short order, maybe a couple of weeks. And given that the tavern's already in its current, final form, that area would be available for on-premises consumption. So I believe the special one-day liquor licenses will expire in the beginning of February.
Yeah,
So we're hoping that the ABCC will allow for this approval to be granted fairly quickly, so that way there isn't a gap in operations.
sure. All right. You have the main bar, which is facing into the room on the Main Street side of the building for the folks in the room. Then there's a specialty bar that is in what's now the old tavern. So it's separate from the ballroom, but it looks like you're opening that up. What's the difference between the specialty bar and the main bar? And can I get coffee there?
Yes, you will be able to get coffee, and the specialty bar has been contemplated for more spirits, but it will have several drop lines on it as well. So we like to see what the community and our guest demands are, and what they like, but we try to have flexibility everywhere, where the main bar really is going to be in quite a draft-focused,
Yeah.
with many offerings at that, so it's sort of the showpiece of the tavern.
Okay, all right, thank you. And you have a retail shop, and so what will you be selling there? Will you be selling beer from there, or is all the beer to go from the distribution building? How does that? What's the difference?
So our retail shop is, if you guys visit any of our breweries and you like to have a sweatshirt to go home, or maybe you want a golf ball or something that is, we will have Treehouse in Greater Boston and Tewksbury specific merch that will be unique to this store. But maybe you just tried Eureka for the first time when you were at the main bar in the chat room and said, oh my gosh, I would love my mom to be able to try that. So I can get a 4-pack and just walk out with that 4-pack as opposed to, you know, maybe buying a case and getting in my car and driving around to the to-go building, which certainly people will do, but there's folks that just want to walk out with a small amount that's in their hand.
Okay, I appreciate explaining the differences on how those operations will
We
work.
try to make it really easy so there's flexibilities for however folks want to use it. So.
Okay. And my last question is, what's the status on the tent? Is it open now?
Yes.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
went and it wasn't open yet, and then I know there was like some questions about snow.
We're going. Yeah, we haven't had much snow, but you can speak to the
Yeah, so as far as I know, and my colleague Nicole, who was at the last meeting, could speak to this much better, but as far as I know, we were able to get all of the sturdiness that we needed
Yeah.
approved by the building commission, so that the tent was operational, I think, a few days after we opened up the tavern.
Okay.
And it is operational now. It is a different type of tent than we had originally proposed, and the operation is right now, I believe, can pours in the tent and can and draft in the tavern.
So when you come by, you're welcome. It'll be
I will
ready
check
to
it out.
go.
Yeah, I guess I went too early. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your answer. Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Sure, just a few comments. For the permits itself, sitting in the seat, very, very straightforward, just an expansion of what we voted for. I will say, looking at all the residents, we work for them, anytime you have a change, modification, there's gonna be concerns about what's gonna happen to the quality of my life. So, again, sitting in the seat, the permits are very straightforward, expansion on what we've already approved. But I would like to hear from the residents, because they do have concerns, and have, you know, I don't know if you had dialogue with the residents, but clearly you can see, they have some questions and concerns, and that's natural when there's change, a new business comes in, all these modifications, you know, from a resident standpoint, they could be, what's going on here? Is this gonna impact my quality of life? And so I'd really like to hear from the residents tonight. They had some pointed questions, and, because they might be thinking of something that I'm not, from a permit standpoint. And so I'm looking forward to hearing to some of the residents as we go through this process, so.
So I think it's probably worth mentioning that I had a very nice meeting with the trustees for Eagles Landing. Went through and listened to their concerns. I thought they represented the community really well. They were really candid. I thought it was quite cordial.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, and we've, you know, begun already to address some of their concerns. And really, I think that they would say that we pretty much have the same concerns. I don't want dogs on our golf course. We want the place to be beautiful, any beautification efforts we can make. I think we.
You having
there
trouble
was a-
hearing?
Sorry, there was a.
Just speak up.
I
You
think-
think-
I-
you
I-
have to
I-
face-
um,
but talk louder.
We're back here. We
Yeah, understood. So we're gonna ask them to speak up.
Okay, yeah, certainly. And you'll, I think, Richard, we showed you this earlier, but there was concerns that some lights might be facing Livingston Street. So we'd talked to planning about putting some plantings there, but right within less than 24 hours, we put scrim up to address that temporarily. I can't plant anything when the ground is frozen. So I hope that the residents of Eagles Landing will say they had a meeting with us and the concern was, that's just one example of it being addressed. But we are here to be excellent neighbors. As probably the folks in this room haven't seen, but the town managers from each of the municipalities that we're in have written to you and to Richard to attest that we're great neighbors. And that's certainly what we commit to Tewksbury and our neighbors as well.
All right, let me just summarize that, so now you can hear, hopefully, okay? So what I heard is they had a meeting with the Board of Trustees of the Condo Association, and that there was candid dialogue back and forth, and concerns were raised. Some of the concerns are mutual concerns, and other concerns that were raised, Treehouse intends to try to address.
Absolutely.
One example of that is the entrance off of Livingston Street, that was raised, and yesterday, I believe it was yesterday or this morning, there was scrim put up along the roadway, and that is a temporary solution. When the weather allows, the ground thaws, Treehouse will consider putting permanent shrubbery or fencing in to eliminate the scrim, okay? If I didn't represent what you said accurately, please
No,
tell me.
yes,
but
that's perfect.
hopefully you heard that in the back of the room, okay? I want to just make it clear that I've heard tonight, because this is the number one question that I get, is the golf course going to remain open? And I believe I heard at the outset of this meeting that it is.
Yes.
So I'm hopeful that no one in the room gets up and asks, is the golf course going to remain open? Because we already have the answer to that most important question, okay? All right. I'm going to turn now to open this up for you in the room. I just ask that you come forward, come to the podium. The first order of business is give us your name and your address for the record so we can capture that. And all your comments, please direct to me, and I will help facilitate the response. Please be to the point. There's a lot of people here, and we have a lot of business to tend to. This is an important conversation, but we don't need it to take till midnight. We need to be as efficient as we can, okay? So the floor is yours.
Good evening, Tony Ippolito, 73 Eagle Drive.
Thank you.
23 years resident. Former Board of Trustees for 22 years. Welcome, Board of Selectmen, thank you for inviting us. Mr. Montori, Town Manager, and finally get to meet you people from the brewery. Fortunately, you've done a lot of stuff there, but we've never met with you at all. And I'm gonna go through my preliminary, and I'm gonna give my request to Mr. Johnson, the chairman, and we'll
You're
go
gonna
from
start
there.
that right now, Mr. Ippolito, right here.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Already breaking my rules.
Yes, sir. First of all, number one, Eagle Land residents were never updated on the scope of the work and plans for the future, and meeting with the residents, which are here, some of us, 176 units. We've never had a
Mr.
meeting
Ippolito.
to meet you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. You're gonna make me earn my coffee
That's question
tonight,
number
huh?
one.
Okay.
Question number two.
All right, let's answer that question first, because I'm gonna forget.
Well, I don't want to take too much time. I figured that we could get a rebuttal from the folks from the brewery
Okay.
and answer the question,
Yeah.
so other people may want to come up.
Yeah,
I don't want to stay around
Okay.
that long. I could, but
Thank
I
you.
don't want to do that. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson.
all right.
Second of all, think safe markouts. Okay? They were given permission to tie on to the existing salon, hair salon that they bought for their containers for the beer.
Yeah.
And the markings are still out in the street, and it's been there for, I probably want to say a good five months or more. Think safe when you get the order to, and it's the law, you have to, there were accommodators who go across the street, our property, mark it all up, and it's still there.
Okay,
So,
yeah,
question number three. The entrance from Eagles Landing to Treehouse abutters were never notified about the changes of 2 lanes. Now 3. So, in summarization, that entrance that comes in was a planter, and there was 3 or 4 gentlemen, maybe 5 with a lady. And they took the planter out. That was just being there at the right time. Then about a day or 2 later, they come up with a crew and they start putting new asphalt, so forth on. Then they marked it. So now we got 2 lanes. So when you're coming out of Eagles Landing, the first lane on the right, you go to Livingston Street only. The second lane is a middle to turn with arrows in both of those end of the entrance, Motor Livingston. The third one is not marked, which you take a right-hand turn to go to the brewery. Okay, now, kind of strange. And we own the sidewalk that's where the abutters, we own the sidewalk, okay? That our people walk for years, do their walking, and we have an entrance to building 2, which it's, you can't get in now. Okay, can't get in. And also Ironwood, the people, it's tough getting in there, you gotta watch where you're going. I would like the brewery to take that into serious consideration, to dress that up so that it's properly designed properly, yep.
Okay.
Question number 4. Customers picking up their beer overflow traffic. This happened to me 3 times. And we're only in the winter time right now. So what's happening, Mr. Johnson, is you're coming with your groceries or whatever you're coming from, you take either left or right on Livingston Street, you come down to the entrance of where the 2 lanes are. No way. I was in traffic for over 10, 15 minutes because of the overflow. People inside couldn't direct the traffic so they could buy their beer. Okay? Which I had to take my lane, I had to take and get off the lane and go down to Eagles Landing and take a right where I live. Come on, that's not acceptable. And I'm sure the brewery will do something about this to make this more convenient for people to come in and
Keep going.
get their, pick up their beer. The 5th one. My thing is, do they have a future parking plan? In other words, what are we gonna do with this? We're into the winter time right now. At the present time, the parking's gonna be horrendous. I went by there Saturday afternoon about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And I was over 100 cars in there, well over, my wife and I. They were in the winter walk. Fine, that's okay. Now, this is the winter time. I'm saying, what's gonna happen when the summertime comes with the slides that the gentleman showed with the brewery and so forth and so on? How's gonna handle this abundance of traffic? Plus you have a watershed there, and you take your left hands, come in there, and there's Cone City all around there. And then tonight, you caught what I caught, that they put the black paper we use in conservation, okay? And I said to myself, well, at least they're doing something. They're doing something, so give them a salute for that one. And 6th one, the existing golf course, is there a plan? I did see a summarization from the gentleman that there was a plan. However, some of it is fact. I have to go, some of it's fact. However, I have an article from the Worcester Magazine, and I'm gonna forward a copy to you, Mr. Johnson, and a copy to you, sir. Okay? And his name is Troy Splitzer. He's the head of the Truly Brewing Company in Worcester, Hard Rock Cafe. Recognize the name?
Again, over here, Mr. Nippoli.
So,
It's gonna be a long night if we do
he
this.
said, and this is well written, he says, they stole my idea. He said, and they have, now, I've always envisioned the golf course. It's got Worcester, yeah. So, the Treehouse, another one is in Carlton, Sandwich, Deerfield, Woodstock, Connecticut, and soon Tewksbury, which now it is. It's pretty well written. And it does mention the golf course about the plans. He says he would like to play on it with 2,688 yards. This is okay. I said, wow, this is good. And then he goes on to the fairways and the greens, and then he goes on to talk about the brewery, what they're going to be doing, and then behind the scenes of the winter search. And he says day by day on the course 9 holes, and also he said that, and this is true, they did hire a superintendent for the golf course, okay? So this is some good news. And I will forward this to Mr. Johnson, and you can vote the gentleman here. And my last question, I want somebody else to speak, is the white tent. Now, the white tent, they call it the Winter Walk, I believe that's the name of it. My question is that it's very strange. I'm at a butter, I never got anything about putting this portable tent up, which they dug up the putting green, and now they got this huge white tent there, all right? So what comes to my mind is, being in conservation, The wetlands, 25 feet no disturbed, 50 feet no built. They didn't build nothing, I don't know for sure what they did in there, but however, it's kind of puzzling. Very puzzling. It looks nice, don't get me wrong, it looks nice, but however, there are abutters around there. And my question is, how long is this tent gonna stay up, Mr. Johnson?
Okay. All right, you've given me a lot of homework, Mr.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna stop because these people wanna
I
speak.
think that's
too.
probably a good
And I
idea.
would like to present you with these copies that I have.
Thank you.
So that you people can examine
All
it,
right.
and kindly give them to sir.
Tag team.
All right, so I'm gonna try to be as expeditious as we can, and I'm gonna ask that council and whoever wants to speak, try to be as succinct as we can. So the first issue that was raised was the perception of a lack of a resident meeting at, I think, the condo association. So I think you spoke to it in part by meeting with the condo association board. Do you have any intention to have a broader meeting, or have you considered having a broader meeting with the abutters of the association, or are you gonna rest on the condo board discussion?
Well, I'm happy to have a dialogue. We go through the trustees, which I believe are voted by the residents.
Terrific.
So, yeah, happy to.
All right,
Yep.
so you'll open that up and
Yeah,
hopefully
sure.
have a discussion. All right, so relative to DigSafe, apparently there are still markers that are out there. I don't know the DigSafe process. Mr. Kratman to my left may, but there, I assume, is some responsibility either on the part of the utility or the part of the proponent to remove markings. Do you know offhand, Counselor, what their obligation of treehouse is?
Wha-
Okay,
Obligation or not, beautification is paramount to us, so we have that on our list.
can make
and-
some effort to make a
Absolutely.
phone call,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Okay, all right. Can you speak to the lane changes at the entrance?
Yes, we had administrative review. It was to remove a planter, and it was to alleviate any traffic and I was surprised it was there in the first place, but now you can take a right hand
Yeah.
onto Livingston whenever you want without waiting for the person taking a left-hand turn, so it should be an improvement.
All right, so the part of that, I think, goes back to the first question of just getting input and feedback and
Sure.
working with the neighbors, right?
Yeah,
to
I
address
will
that.
say anecdotally, the
Yeah.
conversations that we had with folks, every time I'm there, I talk to people that are surrounding neighbors, and it's been really positive. Now I
Great.
can take a right-hand turn, but
Excellent, that's good feedback. Can you touch on perception of overflow traffic and issues? Now, some of that isn't your responsibility, it rests
Certainly.
with others, but.
So this facility, like all treehouse facilities, has staff in the parking areas to help move traffic along. And it's great feedback that there was a perception that there might have been a log jam in terms of traffic, but treehouse makes a point to move the traffic along so that way it's safe for everyone. So they don't want folks, in a lane adjacent to the property. They want them on the property, and we'll provide that feedback to the staff.
All right. Any comments, Counselor, about a parking plan? I mean,
So-
you have an approved number of spaces.
So
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand that the buildings and the facilities on the site are existing, right? This is an existing golf course, this is an existing facility.
Yeah.
The only modification related to this property relates to the to-go sales. And related to that, we obtained a traffic impact assessment.
Yeah.
So the facilities are gonna remain in their current form.
Yeah, and I believe I'm correct, and I'm saying this more for people behind you's benefit, that the planning board, as a condition of their permitting process, required that there be further traffic studies down the road periodically.
yes.
So that's something that residents should be aware of. Mr. Ippolito asked about the golf course plan. I guess I'm gonna say it again, you're keeping the golf course open, right?
That is correct, and whoever that article was quoting or wrote has no affiliation whatsoever with Treehouse Brewing Company.
Okay, all right. I'll look forward to getting that copy so I can read it. All right, and the last item that he raised was relative to the tent. And the first point he made was that abutters didn't receive notice of the request for the tent. God bless. but I believe I recall that it's not a requirement that the notice on that permit be provided to the abutters. We discussed this, but in fact, you actually did notify direct abutters. Is that a fair
That's
assessment?
correct.
Okay. How long do you expect to have the tent up?
Well, as soon as the pouring permit is issued by the ABCC, we'll kind of reassess the pouring on premises. So I don't know if there's a time frame in terms of.
We'd like to continue it as long as weather requires it, because we'd like people to have that option.
Yeah.
But we're, working to get the main clubhouse open, and hopefully if the sun comes out, we'll be peeling it back, I hope.
And you will, you had, I think, 31-day licenses, so you're gonna have to eventually come back and ask for extensions of those at some point, potentially, right?
Well, the hope would be that if the board sees fit to grant the license this
Got
evening,
it.
we can talk to the ABCC to
Avoid
see if
that.
they'll be able to expedite the approval of the pouring permit. So that way we can serve
Understood.
on the patio and the tavern without the 1 days.
Got it, okay. Okay, so I hope that answers some of your questions, and I think the most important takeaway is that there's an offer here for open dialogue and continued exchange of concern and ideas. And I'm hopeful that residents know how to access you through your website or some email that they can continue to have dialogue with you,
Certainly.
okay? All right, there's a lot of other people in the room, so who's next? Come on up, don't raise your hand.
Hi, I'm Gail Masoda. I live at 23 Wayside Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple things. One, only 2 of the residents on Wayside Road were actually notified
Yeah.
about this. We're very close. We're on the golf course. We can hear everything on the golf course. One of the questions I'd just like for you to ask them is the live entertainment. What does that entail? Does it entail outside or inside?
Right.
In what are the hours for said live entertainment?
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna ask you to be patient because the 2 hearings that we're working on right now don't pertain to the entertainment license.
I can wait on that if you prefer.
We're gonna come back to that,
Okay, I can do that. The only other question the other question I do have is in regards to the exclusive bottle that is on the golf course. Holes 1 and 2 do abut Wayside Road. Those are residentials. There are pools there, there are children there. I can tell you that we can see everything that happens on that golf course. So please be aware that those bottles that are exclusive can be seen by children in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
There are quite a few children in that neighborhood. Also, I understand to stop the drinking, I get it. I have teens, we all had teens. Do not tell me that somebody's not gonna be putting nips inside their bags and pouring inside those bottles, because you know they are just as well as everybody else will. So I think that the Ranger, obviously, something needs to be a little bit, I'm not a fan of it, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a fan of the drinking on the golf course, because I would just like to know, if I'm on the golf course and I'm playing golf, and I have my 2 allotted beers or whatever it is, how do you know that I don't put my clubs in the car, and then all of a sudden I go back into the treehouse with my buddies, have, some pizza, like they offer, and a beer or 2, like, what, how does that work, I guess is my question, if I could have
All
an
right,
answer.
so I'm gonna ask Counselor to
Sure.
answer that.
So with respect to the question related to nips in the bottle, one could say if there was an responsible alcohol service on the course, people could bring the nips to the course, right? And so it's really incumbent upon the staff, and Treehouse has excellent staff that are going to be around the clubhouse watching patrons, making sure if anyone shows any signs of inebriation, that there's an intervention in terms of that guest, and making sure that they're not overserved. If you visit any of the facilities, there are these ambassadors throughout the facilities watching guests, making sure that there's responsible consumption of alcohol. And I don't know if you want to speak to the other question. But
What was the
related
additional
the question was in terms of the mechanisms in place in terms of
Going
the sale
off
of
the
alcohol.
golf.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
well,
then into the
yes, you
clubhouse.
will be able to golf and have treehouse beverages, and yes, you will be able to go into the clubhouse and have pizza and treehouse beverages.
Okay.
We do have a limitation based on what the activity you're doing, but you can expect if you come to treehouse to golf, you can have one of our beverages both on the course and in the treehouse with your pizza.
In to that point, just as the other facilities, the way they're operated, you get a wristband, and we don't know exactly what the mechanism is going to be at this time, but they mark off on your wristband once you've shown your ID.
Yep.
So there are checks and balances. So you have to have the wristband to get alcohol.
Yep.
There's an understanding of how much you can consume.
And all of our staff is tip certified. You can't go on the floor without that. And it just, this is what we do. Responsible alcohol service is core to what we do.
Sure.
It bears repeating that the complaint that Treehouse gets is that you just can't go in and spend 6 hours and drink all you want. We're not a bar. We're not the place you end the night. We would never jeopardize anything having to do with this golf course to jeopardize our entire system. And we feel we're very good at this.
So your license obviously is contingent on that
That is
stewardship, if
That
you
is
will,
correct.
right? So let me see if I can summarize the question a little bit. If you play golf, your intention is to limit golfers to 2 beers in their round of golf. And if they go in the building, or I go in the building tomorrow when it's open, I'm gonna be limited to 3 beers.
That's
Is
correct.
that correct? So if I play a round of golf and then go in and have pizza and beer, there's a 5 beer combined limit for me as an individual. Is that-
There is, however, because every single member of our staff is tip certified,
Yeah.
and I won't bore everyone with what that certification entails.
No,
We are
understood.
constantly watching for.
And the way that I play golf, it'll take about 3 hours to play, so I understand.
That's
but-
part of the
but-
rationale.
Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
It does, I just
Okay?
have one more question,
All
and then
right,
I will
one
be
last
done.
one.
My last question is this, on the golf course, obviously, what are they going to do about sanitation facilities,
Yeah.
meaning for people who need to go to the bathroom?
Understood.
Because that will be alcohol,
Sure.
always equals a bathroom break,
Agreed,
so.
agreed.
So we'll work with Building Board of Health on whatever is required and whatever makes sense to our guests. We very much would like to serve our guests with every amenity possible, and you can expect that that will be part of it. And the other thing that I want to say, I'm sorry, I'll try to talk a little louder, is you mentioned kids. Treehouse across the board is incredibly family friendly. We have a host of non-alcoholic drinks. You mentioned coffees, but we also have seltzers and other seasonal offerings, and you come in and have a pizza. We really, if you come to our places, you will see full families. I have 4 kids myself. This is where, the type of environment we like to be in. So I think you'll find we're very family friendly, and we welcome families to come in.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. We'll get
And
to
you
that
will be doing
entertainment in a little bit. I won't forget you, I promise. Sir in the back, you had your hand up. Do you have questions or were they answered? Someone's jumping the line? All right,
Hi,
okay.
good evening. My name is Ralph Ford, 15 Fairway Drive.
Welcome.
What just bothered me right the second ago is you're talking about 5 beers, and then they get in their motor vehicle, and they drive out,
Mhm.
and they hit somebody. The courts today, for years back, where did you have your last drink? Treehouse. Guess what? You're in trouble. 5 beers is over the limit. The alcohol. I'm sorry, I'm looking at you,
Thank you. Okay.
okay? That's a main issue, that really just, as you know, I'm a retired police officer, I've seen a lot, and I know what I'm talking about. Second of all, this winter walk, where they're walking the golf course, do they know that they're bringing dogs on the golf course? And the dogs are doing their business on the golf course and on Eagles Landing property. I live there, I'm on the golf course side. I see the dogs coming over, I see them go in the bathroom. I particularly don't like it. We have a no dog policy on Eagles Landing. You can't even bring a dog on the property, according to our condo docs, which was set up by Mr. Ginsburg.
Okay, so I'm gonna take that as a question, because I think it was touched on a little while ago, but it goes back to, I think, just the collaboration between the residents and the business owner, right? So you're hearing some concern, you want to speak to that?
Certainly, as far as the dogs go, absolutely, agree with that comment. We do not want dogs. I'll start by saying that I don't know what winter walk is, but we have not proposed any walking programming. You may have heard, it's winter garden, and that's consumption inside our tavern and inside of our tent. That is what our permits were for. So we never asked or contemplated for any take your dog for a walk through the golf course. That is one of the things that was brought to our attention at the trustees meeting with Eagles Landing. We all have the same goal there, and our staff and our superintendent are going to address that. So
Excellent. Okay.
absolutely going to do our best around there, and we have the same goal in mind. And then the other piece is I have no intention for the sound bite to be 5 beers at Treehouse. It's just in the flow of the many hours that somebody that was a golfer and then came in the relaxed environment and had a pizza over the course of time through responsible alcohol service for our tip certified professionals. That could end up being that, but as I said, we're a very, very relaxed environment. It's open to change, but that's just what we contemplated if you spent many hours at Treehouse.
Okay.
If I just piggyback on that, we talked about all the different facilities that Treehouse has throughout the Commonwealth. Treehouse has never had a case of a dram shop liability. No one has gotten behind the wheel, and the last place they had their drink was Treehouse. And that's something that Treehouse is very proud of. And although there might be a situation where someone might be eligible for 5 beers, if someone's ever stumbling, they're not going to get that third beer, that fourth beer. They're going to get stopped. And that commitment that Treehouse has towards responsible alcohol consumption is why there hasn't been any issues, given all the facilities and all the patrons that have visited Treehouse.
Okay?
I just wanted to say that I'm not in favor of them selling alcohol on the golf course itself.
Understood.
I live on the golf course, and so many times I see gentlemen turn around in the tree line. Next thing I know, they're holding it in their hand, go in the bathroom. Is there gonna be enough facilities?
Yep,
So
that was
this
just
doesn't
asked,
happen?
that was asked and answered, yes. They're gonna provide rest areas throughout the golf course as needed.
Mark has them out there.
Yeah.
And it still happens.
Right.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, anybody else? I'm gonna try to move a little faster now.
Could I just address
I'm
the-
gonna ask you
Oh,
to
okay.
let someone else ask a
Oh,
question,
sure.
so we can go home tonight.
Great.
Weather was looking really great.
Yeah. Thanks for your patience, sir.
No problem, no problem. My name is Les Nelson. I'm
Careful.
almost out of here. I'm a 20-year resident, and up to this point.
What address, sir?
135 Caddy Court,
Thank you.
okay? My experience up to this point has been nothing but great with Mark. He's been a great neighbor, okay? Hopefully it continues with Treehouse. Also, I just would like Treehouse to know that in their meetings with our board, it does not trickle down to us. We have not heard one thing, not that it's their fault, but I just want them to be aware that we hear nothing, okay? So the reason people come tonight is to find out a little bit about what's going on, you know?
Yep, that's understandable.
And the one question I did have is there any truth to what I heard, and you know, again, I heard it, that they're going to construct a silo in the back of the building?
Okay,
That's it?
all right. Can you speak to that?
Certainly, no, we are not going to
Great.
build a silo in the back of the
Okay,
building.
that was one of the
Yeah,
concerns.
thank you for bringing that to our attention
All right.
and
Yeah, it's
spread the word, no.
Okay. And I'm gonna ask you folks to take some homework back. You have an elected board that represents you, and they're not here in this room. That's nothing we can do about it. You need to do something about that, with all due respect to those trustees. Go ahead, you have a question?
Hi, my name is Linda Gunther. I live at 42 Eagle Drive.
Thank you, Linda. Hi.
Sorry.
Over here.
I ran a golf league of 40 women last year, the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And we didn't ask anything of Tewksbury Country Club other than to book their tee times. I ran it, I didn't have to ask them to do anything. I was wondering, I understand there's not gonna be any leagues. And I'd like to know if that's at all possible, because we paid like $280 up front. And then we golfed every week, every Friday morning. So we wouldn't want there anyway,
Right.
from 8 o'clock to about 10:30.
Okay, so
In the
you wanna know
morning.
if there's gonna be leagues that they will
Well,
authorize?
You know, I understand there's not gonna be leagues, but
Okay.
I wouldn't need Treehouse to do anything other
Mm-hmm.
than book our tea times every Friday.
Mhm. Okay, all right,
Starting in
let's see if we can get an
April.
answer. Any consideration of that?
Oh, in the future, certainly, we would make consideration. We're trying to get our feet under us. This is the very first golf course that Treehouse Brewing Company has ever owned and operated. So out of the gates, we're gonna take it really slow and try to do an outstanding job before we can contemplate additional programming. So I can say you are correct in that we are not going to be opening with leagues, but programming can change over time.
Okay,
I have tried to call Treehouse about 3 times, and I get a recording. So I wanted to ask them that question.
you got the answer,
Now I
right
got the
here,
answer.
right here.
I have another question.
All
I
right.
live on Eagle Drive,
Mhm.
and I understand their utility maintenance shack is at the end of Eagle Drive. I live at the beginning of Eagle Drive, and I see a lot of trucks going back and forth. And we have a speed limit, I forget what it is, I think 20 miles an hour. None of the trucks are doing 20 miles an hour.
Okay. Okay. So
And
these
my-
are contractor vehicles, or?
Yeah.
All right, so you got a good message there, right?
Absolutely.
Vendors need to be managed.
Yes, it was brought to our attention at the trustees meeting. We've spoken to our general contractor. He's put word out to all of his subcontractors. The trucks will be done as soon as our construction's done, and we're very interested in getting the interior construction done as soon as possible. But I assure you that is a message that will be reiterated on a weekly basis. I will be on site with my building and contracting team twice this week, and that message will continue to be loud and clear in an in-person conversation.
Okay.
And, I don't, rumor had it that you were going to have a beverage golf cart.
Nope, they've already answered that.
Is that
Yeah.
just the house?
That's just the house,
Okay.
okay?
And will that be, wine as well?
So no.
No wine,
Yep.
okay?
Okay.
All right.
And the name of the golf course?
Do you have a name of the golf course?
I leave that with our graphics department. I don't want
All right.
to speak on that too
To be
soon.
determined,
Okay.
all right?
All right,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Come on up, please. It's a long walk, but.
Good evening, everyone. I will be brief, and I will direct my questions to Mr. Johnson. Thank you. The golf course is open.
Can you give me your name and address?
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. I'm Marie McNamee.
Thank
I
you.
live at 76 Eagle Drive.
Okay, and we
and-
received your letter.
Yes,
Okay.
my husband and
Yeah.
and I have been residents of Tewksbury for 44 years.
Excellent.
So, first of all, I have to say I agree with the lovely lady in green. I'm not a big fan of any of this. However, we are neighbors and we want to be good neighbors. The golf course is open, that's great. I was having trouble envisioning what it was going to look like. You know, hearing, you hear rumors, you read notices. So you're going to allow golfers. Are they the only ones that are going to be served beverages on the course?
Yes.
So the golf course isn't gonna be used for like, you know, strolling when there's no golf. It's not an open field where people are gonna be walking around consuming beverages. Is that right?
That's over here, but
Yes.
the answer is,
Through the chair, yes,
Counselor?
that's correct.
For this year?
no, to the chair. he
To
said.
the chair, yes.
The answer is, that's correct. Golfers only.
All right, great. And you spoke about a ranger, and it's nice to hear that you have ambassadors. The ranger who is monitoring the golf course, is this a law enforcement person? Do they work for the tree house? Do they have any experience with an unruly guest? I'm wondering.
So,
Counselor?
Sure, I'm happy to speak on that. We have enjoyed a long history of not unruly guests, which is really great, and we would expect the same based on the type of guests that we attract. Part of that responsible alcohol service and tip certification and all of our many trainings that we have throughout our system, we're very well prepared and have been in our almost 11 years of service with folks. So we will have very well trained folks on guest management, and the ranger will be a treehouse employee.
Okay, so your employee tips trained?
Yep.
Not law enforcement?
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
Are there any plans that there'll be more than one tent?
The white tent you're referring to? Do you have, I believe the plan is to remove the tent. Is
That's
that right?
correct.
Okay.
All right. The container that will be on the golf course as you're serving golfers, what size is the container?
A 20-foot.
20 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can see it. It is right now in the temporary tent, right outside of the tavern. So if anyone who's curious, we
Ryan, take a
welcome.
look.
We'd love to have you. You can see it.
Okay.
All right, and you
Don't bring
mentioned.
your dog, though.
That's correct.
No dogs, please. We can't have a dog, so
Okay.
nobody can have a dog. Someone mentioned something about rest areas or restrooms.
Right.
We're not talking porta potties, are we, on the golf course?
I don't know. Counselor?
We'll work with Board of Health and Building
Okay.
for what is required following the statute.
we've had similar requests, not at a golf course, but at other facilities such as Deerfield. So we will work with the town to make sure that whatever is provided is code compliant.
Okay, it would be,
Again, over
in
here.
line with the aesthetics of such a beautiful
Well, we're gonna
property,
see how that
hopefully.
works out, right?
Okay, and finally, I'm also concerned as, Tewksbury residents about, especially being a resident of Eagle Drive, and we are having to, kind of tolerate the lots of extra traffic and heavy equipment. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, it might be way back and who owns what about why they can't use Livingston Street to get in and out of their maintenance yard. Why does it have to be Eagle Drive?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I would love to know the answer to that.
Do you have any feedback on that?
So we do have a deed restriction to use the way that abuts Mr. Ginsburg's property that wasn't in place perhaps when he owned all of the property.
Okay.
But in terms of not using Livingston is a main road that we do
Right.
utilize. So
Right,
All right.
so if you live on Eagle Drive, too bad, right?
Well, I think Eagle Drive is a public street, right?
Is that the answer, is
I
that?
believe so.
It's not,
We maintain it, we plow it.
I don't
And
know
you know
the
what?
technical.
We gotta be
thing.
careful here, right? We can't have 25
Yeah,
people
yeah.
talking, right? So, I appreciate the clarity.
Okay,
Okay.
and just know that it is a concern for particularly those of us who
Yeah.
do live on Eagle
Yeah.
Drive. Just the other day, a truck and another piece of equipment went back and forth 6 times. Yeah, and I think that's everything.
Excellent.
And thank you for allowing me to share my concerns and questions.
No
Okay?
problem.
All right.
And some of that, I think, requires further dialogue, right?
Yes.
And raising your hand and having some communication. Is there anyone else? Okay, ma'am.
I just have one question.
Okay,
Bear Ford, 15 Fairway Drive.
thank you.
Is the color of the structure of the clubhouse going to change?
Okay, good question.
It is going to be the same black that the outpost is.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay,
I thought it was charcoal.
anyone else? Okay, sir, I'm gonna, one question.
What, that's
I'm gonna
all?
give you one question. We don't go around the room twice.
Mr. Johnson, just one question.
Yes,
Is it feasible in the future that when there was a notice, public notice coming out, for the brewery, okay, for public hearing, could there be more effort put into the abutters so that and the abutters, as we know, Mr. Johnson, book and page them at the assessor's office within a certain radius, okay? And
Yeah.
I think we need to put a little more effort into it, so that everybody is on the same book and page when it comes for public hearing and for what's going on at the brewery, so that we're a good relationship.
yep, and I believe, to answer your question, that effort has been made. I have, 5-page notice here, list of abutters.
Okay?
It includes Heritage Hill Road, Main Street, Audubon Road, Wayside Road, Jean Ave, Bogey Way, Fairwear Drive, Eagle Drive, Caddy Court, Federal Street, Eagle Drive, Rebecca Way, Roundsville Road, so I'm not gonna read them all,
No,
but
no.
ample notice.
Okay, okay.
And I guess one thing we could ask, and again, this would be a courtesy, not a requirement, is perhaps Treehouse in the future would notify your board, and they can in turn notify you, because they obviously do that on occasion.
I think that's a great.
So maybe that would be a courtesy that you could accommodate that.
Okay? Thank you, sir.
All right, so maybe we made a little headway there. Okay, all right. All right, in the interest of expediency, I'm gonna ask my colleagues if there's a motion to close this public
So
hearing.
moved.
Second.
Okay, we no longer need to take a roll call, so, all those in favor of closing the 2 public hearings, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I will vote in the affirmative as well. So we have now closed the public hearing. That leads us to the deliberation portion of the hearing, and I would ask my colleagues if they have any comments or proposed motions, and I would ask that we take the 2 votes separately, just for clarity's sake, right? The first one involves the alteration of the premises, and the second one involves the pouring of distilled spirits and malt beverages. Both are alterations.
I'll make a comment, a motion and a comment. So like you said, this was straightforward for me on the board, but I'm happy that you heard the open dialogue, and we gotta take it to the next level. Actionable items based on what we said today, so I'm even a little bit more comfortable now with the premise. So with that being said, I would make a motion to approve the alteration of premise, pouring of distilled spirits and malt beverages.
Okay, so that's, I believe, the second one.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes,
They need to
Counsel.
go in the opposite order,
I agree.
unfortunately.
That's right.
All right, I'll strike that from the record. I will make a motion to
Yeah.
approve the alteration of premises expanded on on-prem consumption areas.
Okay,
Second.
all right, so we have a motion made, and again, this is to extend section 19C subsection N, the pouring permit premises to include the entire property, for lack of a better term, adjacent patio areas, golf course, pro shop, and the grill building. So that was made by Mr. Kelly. It was seconded by Ms. Wellman for our recording secretary's benefit. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative as well. So that's a 5-0 vote on the first item. Excuse me, I misspoke. 4-0.
There you go.
Mr. Mackey's not present. Okay, so now that brings us back to the original motion that you offered, Mr. Kelly, on section 19C subsection N, to pour malt beverages and distilled spirits throughout the premises that we just approved.
Correct.
You making that motion?
Please.
Can I have
Sure.
second that motion with conversation?
Sure.
So, I understand you want to have on golf course present, but you've heard from residents that they have concerns about locations of this box. I have no problem issuing the thing, but they have to take consideration of if we have any, don't put it on the holes where it is next to houses. And if we get complaints, then it should be moved and not go back to those holes where we're getting things. So just take that into consideration, okay? All right, with that motion, I'll second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion made by Mr. Kelly to approve the request as presented, seconded by Mr. Kratman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well, so that also will be a 4-0 vote. Okay, the next item we have to address is the common victualler license application. And this is brought forward by Treehouse Brewery Incorporated and pertains to the food service. So, Council, you want to address that for
Yeah,
us?
so, Mr. Chair, as I referenced my earlier remarks, Treehouse will be preparing food in the clubhouse, and potentially the tavern at a later date, but right now the clubhouse is contemplated for food preparation, which is the pizza oven. So, because they're preparing food, they're required under Massachusetts law to have a common victualler license.
Yeah.
They'll also work with the Department of Health, obviously, to make sure all the plans are reviewed and approved in accordance with applicable codes, so.
Yeah, okay. And I'm gonna note for the record, and my colleagues, I know are aware of this, but the building department approved this application, but our health department has not.
Right.
So any vote we take, I assume a motion will be made that the approval subject to Board of Health approval, or Health Department approval. Are there any questions that my colleagues have on this item?
I have a comment.
Mr. Kratman?
Thank you. So the alteration of premise, the change in the building, this is, originally when this was issued for the clubhouse, they had like a traffic, I saw the traffic thing that the planning board reviewed. But the hours of operation are much different. That was done, I know they suggested a 6-month and 12-month review of this. But the hours of operation are much different of what's going on. Do you have any idea of what you're expecting for trip generation on this?
So if I may, through the chair, the Treehouse facilities, they all vary, right? And so ultimately, by having this new facility, that spreads commercial activity throughout the Commonwealth. So people aren't driving all to Charlton anymore. People are driving to Deerfield. People are driving to Sandwich. People are driving to Tewksbury. And so that kind of disbursement of activity really helps Treehouse service their clients in a responsible manner. So at this point, we're anticipating, significant interest in this facility. But Treehouse, as I said before, in the remarks related to the pouring permits, they have their ambassadors, they have traffic employees in terms of directing traffic. We've consulted with the traffic engineer regarding the anticipated traffic. They indicated that the only significant change in terms of operations on site relates to the to-go sales. And so there was a traffic impact assessment prepared related to that additional change. But we actually had a conversation with the traffic engineer recently about the actual use on site. While the hours might be slightly different, I don't know the prior hours, the use itself remains golf course, retail, assembly. And so the underlying use of the property itself, while there's a different operator, generally remains the same. So the traffic engineer indicated they anticipate fairly similar traffic as was previously experienced at the site. To the extent that there's a determination that there is significantly more traffic, Treehouse will have to assess that. And usually the business doesn't want to have people, parked on the street. They want to make sure they're able to service their clients. But given what we've seen in other facilities throughout the Commonwealth, we're not anticipating massive crowds or anything of that nature.
Okay.
Have you gone to, for a change of use of the facility, have you submitted a permit to the State Highway Division for a change of use for the type of business that you're running?
So we had a discussion with the traffic engineer about that, again, through the chair. The discussion with the traffic engineer was that their initial impression was that it would not be required because we were not making any alterations within the state highway itself. We weren't making any changes to the curb cuts. The uses were still the same. That being said, they're going to evaluate as things progress, and they'll reach out to Mass DOT if needed. And so that's kind of where things stand with respect to Mass DOT. So a request hasn't been submitted to Mass DOT, but if it's determined that it's needed, they will submit.
Okay.
The next thing is, because you talk a lot about the traffic and the people inside your premises, which is, I understand that. You have people mitigating traffic on your premises. But those signals were timed for the type of traffic that's existing. The existing facility, the hours of operation of what they did, a lot of their events were not during peak hours. A lot of their events that they had was they had golf during the day, and then they had facility, like weddings and other things that would either happen on the weekend or night events. This is gonna be much different. Your trip generation is gonna be quite a different of what you're proposing. And I just wanna take that in consideration when you're submitting that. I know you're gonna be doing a 6-month and a 12-month, but that should be reviewed. So when you're talking to your traffic engineer, you will have peak hour people going in there. And so there should have been some sort of review. My other comment is, you can see what's happening with the residents here. You have businesses, you've run a number of businesses. I'm surprised that you didn't do a couple more public hearings, honestly. It would have saved a lot of this. There's not one person in this room that doesn't want your business to do well. I think this whole board, the whole community wants to welcome you. But we have residents that don't seem to be getting enough communication. And I think that can improve. You've heard everybody has questions. Everybody's rooting for you to come here. But we don't want to have people coming, I have no idea, we didn't get noticed, we don't know what to expect. And when we've asked a lot of questions, I've heard the response, well, that's not our company model. We don't give announcements, we don't do this, we don't do that. Well, that leaves these people in the background with a lot of questions, when you're gonna open, what they should expect. They have no idea, we had no idea, and we have to have these meetings to do it. I think you could do a much better job of going out to the public, having a couple of public meetings and letting the residents know what's going on. Other than that, I think this is gonna be a wonderful business, hoping you're the best, but I think you really need to do a little bit better with the community response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me get back to license to serve food. I don't remember if there was a motion, but I'm gonna ask if there is one.
I will make a motion to approve the food license for the premises consumption.
And are you making that subject to health department approval? Mr.
Yeah,
Bell?
subject to approval from the health department.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, so the motion was offered by Mr. Kratman, seconded by Ms. Wellman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair will vote aye as well. That will be a 4-0 vote. Okay, the last item that we need to address relative to Treehouse Brewing is a public hearing on the matter of an entertainment license. So this is, again, a public hearing. I'm gonna save the time of roll call. Notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a public hearing in accord with Mass General Law, Chapter 138, on Wednesday, January 25 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board's main hall, Town Hall, on the application of Treehouse Brewing Company located at 1880 Main Street for an entertainment license consisting of live acoustic and recorded music and televised sports programming from Sunday through Saturday between the hours of 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Input is welcome from the public. All right, so Counselor, you want to update us on what your request is beyond what I just stated?
As you indicated, Mr. Chair, we've submitted this entertainment application, which is required under Massachusetts law when one is serving alcohol and providing entertainment. The primary entertainment we're anticipating at the facility is what's listed in those lines of that application, which are recorded music, live music, acoustic music, and potentially some televised sport events. It would be great to watch the Masters, for example, at the facility and have a pour. We also checked off other types of entertainment out of an abundance of caution. We've heard some remarks from the neighbors, and we understand the concerns related to outdoor entertainment. Outdoor entertainment would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, live acoustic music. It would not be, there's no rock concerts on the golf course or anything along those lines. And so Treehouse is a beautiful facility in Deerfield where they have an indoor concert facility for that purpose. So they currently have outdoor entertainment in Charlton. It's acoustic or some slight amplification, but in this instance we understand that it's adjacent to residential property, so we can we're happy to condition it not to have amplification outside, and have all the entertainment that's being requested in the application be indoors. That's not a problem.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, can I ask my colleagues if they have any questions on what was just represented?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Wellman?
My main question was going to be, is there going to be exterior amplification? I heard that is a no.
No.
Thank you.
Well, if I may, just to make sure we're clear here, would there be like recorded music outside at all?
Yes.
Okay, so there could be a situation where there's recorded music played, as one's consuming, outside on the patios,
Okay.
but it wouldn't be to the point where it would be a nuisance to the neighbors. You wouldn't be able to hear it from the properties. And to the extent that there is, like all these licenses, these are renewed on an annual basis, and so if the select board has concerns, we can come back before the select board on, an interim basis to address any of those concerns. But on an annual basis, if you determine that, recorded music outside is, too much of a nuisance, we can certainly modify that, so.
It really is an ambient level. It's just background, part of the nice relaxed environment. And so
The intention is that your customers can have a conversation.
Oh,
and there's music in the
absolutely,
background, right?
absolutely.
This board is well experienced at residents who have complaints about neighboring businesses. So we've walked this walk before.
Sure.
Pretty well. So, we're responsive to that. So I'm encouraged by your answer. And I know you do summer concerts. You touched on that you do indoor concerts in Deerfield. You have a facility for that.
So Deerfield has an indoor facility. There's the potential that Deerfield might have outdoor facilities, concerts, but that's not contemplated for Tewksbury.
But for Tewksbury, you're thinking musicians that might come in and be playing guitar on the
Yeah.
patio or something along those lines without a loud amplified piece.
Yeah.
Correct.
One of-
No exterior amplification.
For example, one of Treehouse's owners has a son that's a great artist, and he'll sometimes perform at Charlton outside when people are having pours on the patio. So that's just an example of what kind of artists you might see at Treehouse on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday evening.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
all right. Any questions, Mr. Kelly?
Just really quick, I mean, like Ms. Wellman said, we went down this road before many, many times for Tewksbury's, we have weird configurations where we have industrial, residential, and businesses together, so we've been down this road. It's tough here to ask 1,000 questions because at the end of the day, you don't know how loud the noise is gonna be for whatever venue here you might select. So, again, I'm okay with it, but this is the one where you almost have to wait and see. If you do X and the residents come back to us because of whatever the case may be, we have, as a board, we have to be very reactive of this because there's a lot of, it's just gray areas, a lot of unknown areas. So
Sure.
that's gonna be my preference, sitting in the seat where, I'm okay with it. However, we do have to keep a close watch on some of these activities. You might think it's fine. However, the residents, the abutters, that's gonna be a different story when we're sitting on their, in their backyard. It might be a different story. So just, that's my comments as a word of caution as a business, and it goes back to communication. Maybe get in front of the residents, here's what we're gonna do on these dates, and let them have questions as opposed to coming back to us, in 3 to 6 months. So anyways, I think it's just a word of caution because we've been here, done it, seen it, in like scenarios, so, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kratman, any questions on that?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so I don't have specific questions. I just want to offer a comment, and this is more for the residents. I took some time this week to do a little bit of research, and it was enlightening to me, and I hope it's helpful to you. The proprietor, the business owner plays a big role in this conversation, that's obvious. And it does require a partnership with the abutters and the neighbors. I think they understand that. That's one of my takeaways. I looked at the licenses that were held by the prior owner that operated Tewksbury Country Club. And when I looked at the alcohol service licenses that existed, they were authorized to serve alcohol on the premises to 1 a.m., 7 days a week. The alcohol license that exists for this current owner is 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. That's 2 hours earlier in the evenings, every evening. There's a difference between those two licenses. When I looked at the entertainment license, the prior license holder was approved for dancing, radio, recorded, live music, television, amplifiers, bands, DJs, 11 a.m. to 12 a.m., midnight. The request here is 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., an hour less. The difference is, the question that's already been asked is about outdoors. That's the difference. The common victual license is exactly the same. So I ask you just to think about that, because in reality, there's less time of alcohol service and there's potentially less time of entertainment on the premises. The operations are very different, and I appreciate that. But if you step back and think about it, there was a time a number of years ago, many of you probably were owners of condos at that time. Those same conditions with some expansion were approved. And for the last, whatever it is, 22 years, 23 years, 25 years, everything seemed to work out okay. So Mr. Kelly hit the nail on the head. Change is difficult. It requires collaboration, cooperation. And we're counting on Treehouse to be an excellent neighbor. And hopefully they will earn that. We talked about that last time we were together. So I just want to offer those comments, not so much to say something's good or bad, but step back and think about it. Alcohol service on the golf course is different, and outdoor entertainment is potentially different. And to the point that was made, this board can ask them to come back. These are privileged licenses. They're not rights.
Right.
That's why we're going through this experience this evening. So if people don't cooperate and play together in the sandbox, then obviously this board, to Mr. Kelly's point, hears about it, and we have an opportunity potentially to do something about it. So I hope that that at least assures you that we're paying attention, if nothing more. Okay? So that's my comment on the entertainment license. And with that, I'll ask if there's any public input relative to the entertainment license.
Yeah, no,
You had a question, ma'am, so yeah, come on up. Good for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Again, I'm Gail Masoda from
Thank you,
Wayside
Gail.
Road. Just a couple of things.
Sure.
I do appreciate your support because it does mean a lot. As far as the abutters, 23 Wayside Road is maybe from here, from you to me. I was not notified. And I do welcome them, and I do want them to come. It's the amplification and it's the decibel of the noise level.
Yep.
And I really and truly hope that it just can't go back. And I really want to put that out there. On a summer afternoon, I don't want to be sitting on my deck listening to somebody else playing a guitar, because it's just not fair to us. It's not fair to the people on Wayside Road, nor on Eagles Landing. And I think it's a wonderful thing that they're coming, and I think it's a great thing. And I'm sure, as I'm making eye contact here, that we can all play
Yes,
nice.
thank you. I'm trying to
No,
write some-
no, that's okay.
That's good, I like that. That was very good. Good for you.
Thank you.
Good for you.
But you still not.
I heard everything you
You
said.
may have heard it.
Don't you
No,
worry.
it goes two ways, right?
Okay. I'll
So
put
we're
that
all
down.
gonna play nice in the sandbox, we all
Okay.
have to act nice in the sandbox,
Very
right?
good.
I would hope that the former resident who owned the country club, one thing about that person, if there was a complaint, I didn't come to you.
Yeah.
Because the noise level at 10 o'clock at night, the town ordinance says 10 o'clock. I could call him on the phone. I had his number. I could call him or see him the next day at Donna's Donuts and say, hey, what's going on with that? I apologize. No, that man never, ever would refuse a phone call. There needs to be more of a hotline system, especially for the abutting neighbors. And I think that that would be a nice gesture on their half. And again, I do welcome you, and I want you to feel welcome.
Yeah.
But I also think that we need to have more of a hotline system. Because in all actuality, the town ordinance says 10 o'clock. I mean, Market Basket will tell you that because I'm always calling on them with their tractor trailer trucks. So we need to have something to play nice in the sandbox.
Yep.
So more of a communication hotline for the abutting neighbors.
Yep.
If Max got a notification, I should have gotten one as well. I'm closer.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
that's what I was trying to identify, but your point's well made. And I think Mr. Kratman said it in different ways, right? The bottom line here is, we don't want to solve these issues here.
Right.
You need to solve them together. Mr. Ippolito,
Mr. Johnson. Thank you. Your point well taken, what you were talking about with the prior owner, with the license for music that they had. I understand where the brewery's coming from, okay? However, I don't believe at this time we have enough information on what they're proposing to do. And in all honesty, this is a very, very critical situation with the noise level. However, I think we need a little more time for the brewery to look a little deeper to see how they're gonna program it on an even level. And with that being said, because it's the abutters, with the music, and I think it's a good idea, don't get me wrong. I mean, hey, maybe over, I like to dance, But anyway, the thing is that I feel we should walk before we run with this, and let them do a little more homework and come back for a public hearing so that we can have an even keel of where they're coming from, so that we can understand more the scope of the work, how they're gonna do it, and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Ralph Ford, 15 Fairway. Just two things. I appreciate your research. That was done how many years ago when he applied for these licenses? Most of the people in Eagles Landing now are up there in the ages, especially in Building 1, which is right across from the country club. They like to have their windows open. They're not gonna be happy with loud music from 10 o'clock on. I'll tell you that right now, because of the age bracket.
Okay.
The other question I have is directed to the town manager. Will there be a police officer on duty where is alcohol being served with a number of people on premise?
Mr. Montori?
We don't have a plan for that now, but that's not to say we won't have those discussions in the future.
Are you required to have one?
No, there's no requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
I just want to say.
Can you do me a favor, because we're starting all over again, can you give me your name and address again?
Okay.
Thank you.
Linda Gunther, 42 Eagle Drive.
Thank you.
I just want to say, we have Eagles Landing has a Facebook page.
Yeah.
And also, we have a newsletter that we put out every 3 months. And that might be a way of communicating with Treehouse.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Johnson. Philip Minnesota, 23 Wayside Road, Tewksbury.
Welcome.
So there's only two items I really want to bring up in regards to the outdoor entertainment. So I understand the previous owner had outdoor entertainment very sporadically. It wasn't consistent, not 7 days a week. A lot of times it was just on the weekends. My concern would be that it runs 7 days a week. So having a schedule of what their intentions are, and if it's going to be 7 days a week till 11 o'clock at night, that's, I think, going to be an issue. The second thing that I think they ought to take into consideration is, I understand they're not gonna amplify music outside necessarily, maybe on the radio or whatever. But I find that it's not the music a lot of times, like they'll keep that level down. It's the crowd that gets outside after, a few drinks, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're applauding and all that. That becomes very worrisome to me. So again, it's something that I hope that they would take into consideration as they're kind of putting out their plans and reminding their patrons there are people in the neighborhood.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I don't know, Counselor, if you want to respond to that.
I hate to use the word crowd control, but, maintaining a peaceful, calm environment is critically important to our brand promise, and our neighbors should expect that from us.
Okay, great.
We don't expect people screaming outside, and would take care of that right away.
Yeah. All right, so we appreciate that. And obviously, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, if you will, but there's a stewardship issue here. where Mr. Kelly, I think, alluded to it earlier, we have some unique settings here where there's, facilities like your beautiful facility right next to residential space, and we have to coexist, right? So,
We very much
It
look forward
requires
to
that.
welcoming all of our neighbors in. I think they're going to be very pleased once
Okay.
they see us.
all right. All right, I don't see anybody with a hand up or standing up. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues to please give me a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion made by Ms. Wellman,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kelly. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? The chair votes aye as well, so that's 4-0 in favor of closing the public hearing. I want to, before I ask for a vote or any further comments by my colleagues, I want to thank those of you in the room for your patience, both before this evening, leading up to this evening. Clearly, you raised good questions. Your concerns are certainly well noted by this board. We appreciate it, and I personally, having to manage a meeting like this, I appreciate the respectful tone that you all brought to the discussion. And I apologize for not catching you every minute in the eye. Next time I'll be better at that. But I want to thank you all for that. It does help to get progress when we work together. So with that, let me ask if my colleagues have any last comments, or I would gratefully accept a motion on the entertainment license.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead, Mr. Carpenter.
Mr.
Just gotta make a motion. Make a motion for the approval of the entertainment license for live acoustic music, recorded music, televised sports programming for the Farmer Brewery Sunday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. with an exclusion on exterior amplification for live music.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Do we have a second on that motion specifically?
What did you exclude, Ms. Wellman?
Just exterior amplification for live music.
Mr. Chair, just to be clear though, that includes the other items that were checked as well.
All the other items, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're on the
Yeah, I
same
didn't
page in terms of the motion. Thank you.
The entire, do you want me to read that into the record?
That would be appreciated.
All right, so that would include dancing by patrons, live music, use of an amplification system, theater, exhibition, or play, light show of any description, radio, any dynamic audio or video show, whether live or recorded, recorded music, dancing by entertainers or performers, floor show of any description, moving picture show, jukebox, television, any open flame devices or performances. Per the application.
So essentially, for all the checkboxes, if they follow the rules per the checkboxes, do we need that motion to exclude what they wrote down, because it's not exactly quote-unquote checked, listed?
So they have a use of amplification system is allowed inside the building. So my motion is to exclude exterior amplification for like the patio.
For live music, to be
For
clear.
live music only.
Okay.
So the radio could be played outside at the.
Fair enough.
they
Okay, thank you
described,
for the
but just
clarification.
for that piece.
Fair enough.
Okay. So I have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion made by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Kelly. Let me ask all those in favor to please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I will vote in the affirmative as well, so that again is a 4-0 vote. Okay, thank you very much. We have other business to tend to. I'm gonna take a 2-minute recess.
Thank you very much.
If you're welcome to stay, or those of you who are interested can leave. Okay, we're back live to our meeting. It's 9:04 p.m. The 7:15 agenda item is a public hearing on a poll petition. I'll read the hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a public hearing on January 25, 2023 at 7:15 p.m. in the Town Hall here in Tewksbury on the petition of National Grid on a proposed installation of approximately 5 feet, 2 to 3 inch conduits with number 2 1-1C AL primary cable from new pole 18 location to edge of property on Kenzie Marie Way. And that is being done to provide electric service to new homes on Kenzie Marie Way. National Grid and Verizon also propose to relocate the existing pole 18 on Pine Street approximately 19 feet easterly in order to provide electric service to the new homes on Kenzie Marie Way in Tewksbury. So this was filed by National Grid, and I will note for my colleagues that we did receive correspondence dated January 20 from the Director of Public Works, Mr. Hardiman, and he has recommended that some conditions be imposed on this work due to the existence of a 32-inch oak tree adjacent to the roadway. I just want to call your attention to that. And I'm under the impression from the town manager that there will not be a representative here from National Grid this evening.
It will not due to this, the weather.
The weather. Do you have any comments for us that you can offer, or?
No, just
Okay.
if the board is comfortable enough to approve it, subject to meeting the DPW's requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a new road. We need service. The diagram that was provided is moving an existing pole on Pine Street 19 feet closer to the new road. And then, as I understand it, the conduits, I believe, are into the ground. And that is basically the request that's being added. And obviously, there's concern about the aforementioned tree that I referenced. There are 3 abutters to this property. They all have been notified. Obviously, no one is here. So I'll ask my colleagues if they want to proceed with this or if they want to table it in light of the fact that there's not a representative from the grid present.
I'm comfortable to move forward. I mean, I don't know if the weather conditions stop the abutters from coming in, but it seems pretty straightforward.
I would concur with that, and I just want to add a comment that I appreciate the Director of Public Works letter and its conditions to protect this oak tree. I'm very encouraged by that posture.
It's a good process add. Recently, in the last year or two, we've asked the Public Works Department to comment on these requests, and that, to your point, is a good add.
Yep.
So, okay, so if there's obviously no one to answer questions, so I'll ask if there's a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to approve the National Grid petition, pole 18, Pine Street / Kenzie Marie Way, with the condition that, I don't know how we want to phrase it, with the condition that they execute on the DPW director's recommendations per the DPW.
Second.
Okay, yep, and I'll just reiterate that the DPW is recommending that there be an arborist, certified arborist on site during the work, and that arborist will have the authority to stop the work if there's potential damage to the root system of the tree, in the arborist's opinion. And the second condition is that National Grid will replace the tree if it dies within 3 years of the excavation work that's being done. So we'll put that in the record.
Okay, so we have a motion, second, Mr. Johnson, through you to the town manager. How do we enforce that, Mr. Montroy? How do we go about that, enforcing that?
I'll make sure DPW is in touch with National Grid and doesn't allow them to dig into the.
All right, very good. Okay.
No permit.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion made by Mr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Wellman, I'm gonna have to go back and do a roll call vote because Mr. Kratman is, again, remote. So Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes aye, making that a unanimous 4-0 vote. Thank you. All right, the other item we have is Double Jelly Donuts, doing business as Dunkin' Donuts, is applying for a common victual license, and effectively, the ownership of virtually every Dunkin' Donuts in Tewksbury has changed hands. This common victual license request involves 5 East Street or 1700 Shawshene Street, 1699 Shawshene Street, 1973 Main Street, 381 Main Street, 940 Andover Street, 1220 Main Street, and 1992 Main Street, and 1785 Andover Street. It's a lot of coffee drinking in Tewksbury. So this is a change of ownership, and they're asking for new licenses, common victual licenses to be issued. If there's no questions, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I had one question. It said partial change of use. No changes. Never
No,
mind.
yeah, it
The
was a-
box is in the wrong
No
place.
change,
I
yeah,
misread that. No,
yeah.
that's fine. I have no questions. Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion made by Ms. Wellman. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. With that having been said, Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes aye as well. So that's a 4-0 vote, and the original motion for our recording secretary was offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Kelly. Okay, there are no residents, so we won't have any resident input this evening. That brings us to the fiscal year '24 budget presentation by the town manager. And I will turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try to move through this presentation faster than normal. It's a presentation is similar to what I presented in the past in regard to its format. It's updated to reflect the fiscal year 2024 budget that I have finalized. I've met with each of you to review, and the Finance Committee will begin their deliberations in review of the budget on Monday. So with that, first I want to talk about the budget process that we have had over the past couple of months. The budget message that I developed called for departments to submit level service budgets, which means that their budgets would be presented with funding to provide the same service that they provided in FY23. It's not a level funded budget, which would mean they would present a budget in the same amount as they had in FY23. The budget message was sent out November 4th. Budgets were due November 18th. The departments submitted their budgets within the guidelines, within the budget message, adjusting salaries for contractual obligations. As I mentioned, the level service budget in each department, in addition, would provide 3 priorities that they would like to see funded that is not within their level service budget. I reviewed the department budgets with department heads from November 21st through December 8th. Developed the budget from December 9th through January 6th. I had a chance again to meet with each of the board members to review it, and I'm presenting the final product tonight. First, I would like to review the summary of revenues and expenditures. First, I'll go through the overall expenditures for the FY24 town and school budget. We'll review other local expenditures that we need to raise funds for, as well as state and county charges. From a revenue standpoint, we'll review the tax levy, which is our major source of revenue, state aid, which is revenue that we receive annually from the Commonwealth, and local receipts. which is revenue we collect locally for various items, and then any other available funds that may be used to help fund this budget. Starting with the expenditures, this first slide gives you a history back to 2018 of the expenditures that the town has approved at town meeting. The top line reflects the budget that's been approved in various fiscal years. To the right, projected fiscal '24 budget is being projected at $133,584,765. That is an increase of $4,339,607 over fiscal '23's budget. You'll notice that there are a variety of other items listed within this slide. Those items in the previous fiscal years are votes that were taken at town meeting, whether it's for transfers for warrant articles, appropriations for various warrant articles, the enterprise funds that are voted at town meeting, Community Preservation Act articles that are voted at town meeting. Those items will be populated into the projected '24 budget as we get closer to town meeting. It's just that since we don't have those at the moment, I'm just presenting the budget under that column. So if you look to the far right, when you see a reduction of 24.5 million, that's not the case. Once I populate those items, you'll see those numbers change.
Sure.
So the budget for FY '24, again, is projected at $133.5 million.
General fund.
General fund budget only. This does not include any other funds. The next slide goes over the other items that need to be raised and appropriated by the town. The first is the cherry sheet offsets in the amount of $64,431. Those cherry sheet offsets will be funded by the state when they provide our local aid, but we need to raise these particular items first before they reimburse us. This specific offset is for public libraries. There's no other item in there. The next item, as you move down the list, the overlay reserve, $425,000. That's the fund set aside by that we set aside for the assessors to provide abatements and exemptions on property taxes for those who qualify. We reduced the amount in FY '24 based on two things. One, what has been spent in previous years, and the other is because the assessors have funding within their overlay reserve that they can utilize. The law changed a few years ago that any surplus in a given fiscal year had to stay with that fiscal year, so any abatements or exemptions given had to remain with that specific fiscal year. The law changed to lump all of the fiscal years together, and you can use it for any fiscal year. So there's enough funding in that account or that fund to assist if they go over this 425. There are no other items within this category that we need to raise and appropriate funds for. As you'll notice on the second to last line, teacher salary deferral, we have completed that finally, and we no longer have to raise money for it. And that was a long 20 years.
Is that how long was it? It wasn't quite 20 years.
I believe it was 20 years.
Yep, I remember it well.
I remember it well. I mean, it wasn't, I think it was 2008. That's terrible.
We had two of them.
Yep.
There were two.
That's correct.
Ah.
Yep.
I am so glad that paid off.
The next slide is for our state and county charges that we need to raise and appropriate funds for. The projection for state and county charges is 10% over the previous fiscal year. The main driver in the state and county charges is the school charter school assessment that we are assessed every year. We do receive funding from the state to help reimburse us for that, not fully, but that's a major portion of our assessment. The next is the regional transit, which is our LRTA assessment for the bus service in town. and then school choice tuition for sending the students that go to other communities. So-
Richard,
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
do we have any McKinney-Vento obligations?
I'm sure we do, but it's not a
They're
lot.
probably
I'd
in
have
the
to check
school.
on that.
Yeah, would they be in the school department budget, or would they fall under us?
It'd be in the school department.
Okay.
I can check on that though. And that is basically for tuition,
That's for
transportation
transportation for
for
homeless
students who
students.
are living in town to go to another
Yeah,
school.
yeah, and I know that the governor has said that she's going to fully fund it, which that hasn't been the case in the past, so I was curious if we would see an offset. Where are Shawshing Tech and Essex Aggie tuitions captured?
It's within the budget, I'll get there in a few
All
minutes.
right, I just see Essex Aggie here, and Essex.
Essex Aggie used to be part of state and county charges, and we've gone past the years that we were funding it under the state and
Yeah.
county charges, so I'll eliminate that from this area.
Okay, it's good to see it, thank you.
So those are all of the funding items that we need to fund within the FY24 budget. The total amount, in addition to the budget, brings the total amount to appropriate to $136,095,801. Now, the way we're going to fund that appropriation of those items are from a variety of sources of revenue that the town has. The first we're going to talk about is the property tax levy. This is revenue the community raises through real and personal property taxes. We commonly refer to this as the property tax levy. In Massachusetts, we are restricted within how much we can increase the levy, and that's based on the requirements of Proposition 2.5 and the constraints it places on a community. A community can only increase its levy each year by 2.5% of the previous year's levy limit, plus any new growth that the community has. Now, new growth is additional tax revenue that's generated through by new construction, renovations, or other increases to property taxes. That's assessed based on what's in place January 1st of the previous year, and that's added to the tax levy. As an example, in the fall of 2023, when new growth is certified, it's set based, the fiscal year limit is based on the previous January 1st, what's in place. And that's important to note because a lot of people see development happening after January 1st, and they believe that's part of new growth. Well, it isn't. Everything is as of January 1st of this year. This slide just gives you an indication of how the Proposition 2.5 works. If we had a levy limit of the previous year of $10 million, you would add 2.5% to that, which is the $250,000. Any new growth that we generated based on what was in place January 1st gives us a new levy limit of $10,450,000. If a town has any debt exclusions that they voted, that would get added after the fact. You do not add 2.5% onto the debt exclusion, which gives us a new levy limit for that fiscal year of $11,450,000. This next slide just gives you an indication of our new growth for FY23 and how it breaks down between residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property. It goes back to 2014. It also breaks out within personal property how much of that has been generated through the utilities. As you can see, the biggest driver in our new growth over the past 10 years has been personal property. And as you can see within that personal property, a large portion has been from the utilities. But this gives you an indication of how healthy our new growth has been in the past. And we anticipate over the next year or two to see, again, some healthy new growth, but not to the point of what we saw in FY23, which was over $2 million. This next slide gives you the projected increase in the levy, tax levy for FY '24. As you can see, the levy limit would be $97,564,785, which again is the 2.5% of the previous fiscal year's levy limit. We added new growth projection of $1.1 million based on reviewing building permits and what we had in place as of January 1st of this year. We add into that levy limit our debt exclusions, which is $11.3 million. We have a bond premium that reduces our debt exclusions each year. We reduce that by $40,000 for a new levy limit of $108,828,210. The levy limit increased over the previous fiscal year, $3,243,846. So that's what the levy will go up. This next slide just gives you an indication that by increasing the levy limit to that amount, this is just a projection of what taxes would go up for the average residential tax bill. This is based on what the current value, home values are, commercial values are, and industrial values are. This doesn't take into consideration those values increasing or decreasing. This doesn't take into the shift increasing or decreasing, or the proportion of values between commercial, residential, and industrial changing. The average tax bill based on this would go up, this levy increase would go up on average $239. This next slide just zeroes in on the FY '24 levy limit, its increase, and the impact to taxes. This next slide is an exercise we talk about every year, that in order to achieve no property tax increase, the levy limit must remain where it is today, and there's no increase in it at all. And that means it would not increase the $3,243,846. If it's not increased, then that amount of money would need to be reduced from the town school recommended FY '24 budget. As I mentioned, the FY '24 budget is being recommended at $133.5 million. Of that, town and school salaries make up a little bit over $59 million of that budget. And if you do not raise the levy by the amount recommended, then we'd have to reduce salaries, which would mean services and layoffs would be affected. Going further, the town and school operating budget, including Shawshene, Essex Aggie, and our capital outlay unclassified budgets total $74.4 million of this recommended budget. Of that amount, $67.7 million really should not be cut, leaving only $6.7 million in remaining operating budgets that could be impacted or could be reduced if you wanted to not increase the levy. But again, by doing that, you're going to impact education, public safety, public works, and overall delivery of services to the residents. This next slide gives you an indication of areas that that make up that $67.7 million that would be difficult to cut, or should not be cut. And I'm not going to go through the list, but just highlight some of them. Solid waste budget, if you want to continue trash service to the residents, cannot be cut. Snow and ice, obviously. Street lights, veterans benefits, elections. The schools have a variety of items from utilities to building maintenance, special ed, technology. We have our retirement assessment for both school and town within this amount, group health insurance for both town and school, our Medicare tax, our property and liability insurance, all within this amount. And then finally, we have $7.8 million for Shawshene Tech's assessment, as well as Essex Aggie. So as you can see, this is a very difficult list of line items that we really could not cut if you wanted to impact that increase to the levy limit. This next slide just gives you an indication of where our average property tax bill stands in comparison to other communities. The current, if you look at the non-shaded Tewksbury average tax bill of $7,799, you see where that stands among the communities. Below it is the projected tax bill if this levy limit is increased to the full 2.5%. It goes up to $8,039. Again, still remains in the middle with all of these other communities. And again, that's projecting a FY24 tax bill against their FY23 tax bill. So that would change once they increase their tax bill. This next slide just outlines state aid that we receive each year. The projection for state aid for the FY24 budget will remain level funded. As we have seen in the past, state aid changes from the time the governor presents the budget until the time the House and Senate finalize their budgets and the conference committee finalizes a budget in July. In the past, we have taken a position of level funding our state aid and adjusting the budget once the state finalizes their state aid figures in July, and we can address it in October if needed. And right now, we know that the governor, the new administration, plans to be very supportive of municipalities, but how that impacts state aid and state and county assessments, we're just not sure yet. The next area of revenue is our local receipts. This is revenue that we collect locally that helps support the budget. We're projecting an increase in our local revenue of $848,427. The items are listed here on this slide, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in the upcoming slides. First and the largest area of our revenue in local receipts is motor vehicle excise tax. This is a locally imposed annual tax assessed to owners of motor vehicles. We're increasing this projection from FY23's projection by the amount of $109,692. The projection is based on 90% of the actual collected for FY22. The hotel motel tax, this is another area that we're going to see an increase in our projections. This is a tax that the city or town can assess anywhere from 4 to 6% on room occupancy at the hotels that are in a particular community. In May of 2011, we voted to assess a 6% tax on short-term room occupancy. The revenue projection for FY24 will be 90% of the FY22 actually collected, but there's one change compared to other projections that we made using 90% of the FY22 actual. We are going to reduce the amount. In addition, we're going to reduce the amount of this projection by one hotel. And the reason for that is we know that one of the hotels plans to convert to apartments. So we took one hotel, or a projection for one hotel, out of this estimate for FY24. Now you can see that this is a large increase over FY23's projection. It's a $436,099 increase. When we were developing the FY23 projection, we had thought there would be 2 hotels being coming off of our list of hotels in town. We thought one of them was going to be sold. We have since talked to that hotel. They are not selling. They are going to continue to operate. They seem to be doing well. So we put that hotel back into the projection. Meals tax. This is a local tax that cities and towns are allowed to assess. Tewksbury accepted the statute that allows this tax in May of 2011. We can tax 0.75% on meals in town, bringing the meals tax from 6.25% to 7%. The projection for this particular local revenue is 90% of the actual collected in FY '22. When we were developing the FY '23 budget, we kept this conservative because we weren't sure where the economy was heading. But since reviewing both meals tax historically and also what we're seeing for occupancy in restaurants, we felt comfortable increasing this amount, which from a dollar standpoint is an $198,901 increase over FY '23. Other excise, this is a boat excise on anyone that owns a boat in the community. This is a small amount. Our projection is the same as FY '24, which is $2,857. Penalties and interest, this projection will remain the same as FY '23's projection, which is 90% of actual collected in FY '22. And this revenue is a late payments assessed to taxes and fees in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 57. Payment in lieu of taxes, otherwise known as pilot assessments. This is mainly for the Housing Authority. We have agreements with them for payment in lieu of taxes that they pay each year. Our projection is based on what we have for agreements with them. It's an increase over FY '23 because we reduced the projection based on the previous year's collection, but in fact, after reviewing the agreements, they should be paying $17,062 a year. Charges for services, this is the ambulance service. This is one of the larger another large revenue source that we generate. The FY '24 projection is 90% of the FY '22 actual bills collected. It does not include any Medicaid reimbursement that we do receive annually because that's so unknown. We just based the projection based on 90% of the bills collected. We increased this amount because we plan to hire 4 new firefighters in the upcoming months. That will allow us to run a second ambulance 5 days a week, which we anticipate will generate additional revenue. Those 4 firefighters were already built into the budget based on an appropriation at town meeting in October, and it was carried forward in the FY '24 budget. Fees, these are charges, fees charged by departments such as police detail administration, fees, sale of weights and measures, fire inspections, things like that. We based the FY '24 projection based on 90% of the FY '22 actual collected, but we did reduce the FY '22 actual by a one-time fee that the schools had amounting to $36,225. That was for sale of, I think, books that they had, of surplus property that they had that generated those funds. We took them out of the FY '22 actual and then did 90%. Rentals, this is the fees collected from wireless carriers. This is an up and down revenue based on the timing of the payments by the carriers. The FY '24 projection is based on using the FY '18 actual, which is the lowest in the past 5 years because there will be some adjustments to some of the carriers' payments going forward, and we just wanted to be cautious as we move into future fiscal years. So that was a reduction actually over the FY '23 revenue. License and permits. These are charges by departments for license and permits such as liquor licenses, building, electric, plumbing, and gas permits, DPW permits, and so on. This projection has an increase over FY '23 in the amount of $85,213. The FY '24 projection is based on removing any unique building permits that we have had for the past 5 years, and then taking the 5-year average of those fees and having a new projection. It was easier than doing the FY '22 actual. It was better going through each of the building permits for those years and pulling out the unique fees. Fines and forfeitures, this is court fines, parking fines, and zoning fines. It's a minor increase of $2,973. The projection is based on 90% of the FY '22 actual. As you can see, the trend has been using the 90% of the '22 actual as a threshold for our revenue projections. Interest earnings, this is interest earned on cash that the treasurer has in the general fund. We're not going to project any revenue in FY '24 because this is just too volatile of a area. And we'd rather be cautious. As you can see, we had a negative last year, and then there's years we've been over $2 million based on having money borrowed in the general fund. So it's easy to not project it, and if the money comes in, it will just help and go to free cash. Miscellaneous state and other revenues, we do not project it, anything in any of the fiscal years since we haven't collected any in the past. Medicaid reimbursement. This is revenue from the federal government providing medically necessary Medicaid services to eligible Mass Health enrolled children. The projection, again, has been up and down over the last 5 years because it's an unknown, and because we're relying on funds coming in from the federal government. We project the lowest year in the last 5 years, which is FY '20. Recurring revenue, no revenue is projected in FY '24 because this source of revenue is unpredictable. Again, the revenue can be anywhere from revenue from the federal government, it could be tax title, deferred real estate, things like that. So we just don't count on it each year, so we don't project any revenue. As you can see, we didn't take any in FY '22. Non-recurring revenue, and again, these titles for these revenues are Department of Revenue titles. We don't make these up. Non-recurring revenues is again no projection because they're not reliable. And these are things like FEMA and MEMA reimbursements or special Medicaid reimbursements. In the past, supplemental tax revenue has been included in this category, and as you can see, we have varied in the amounts. Right, in FY '22 it was $428,000 that we collected. Before that was $23,000. So it's a revenue we don't project.
Mr. Montgomery, where does ARPA funding end up?
Separate line, separate fund.
Separate thing.
Totally separate fund. It's not counting in any of these.
No, I haven't seen it yet, but
It's a separate
you could say it's
counting.
a non-recounting recurring revenue. So, okay, just to be clear about that.
So that's our local receipts. The next area of revenue that we in the past have utilized is just simply titled Other Available Funds. As you can see, in the previous fiscal years, there's many of these line items are populated. These will be populated as we get closer to town meeting. Areas that go in to other available funds are transfers from the stabilization fund to offset any transfers that were listed under the appropriations. All of our enterprise fund revenue, CPA funds that we used. In the past, we used a portion of teacher deferral to offset the money we appropriated that I showed earlier on. Again, that's not needed any longer. So as you can see, the bottom line, the budget is balanced, which is always a good thing going into the budget process, which means we aren't in need of any changes or unique ways of generating revenue. Obviously, we're not going to need any Proposition 2.5 overrides. The budget is balanced within the revenues we're allowed to collect. Next, we'll give a breakdown of revenue, FY '23 and FY '24. Property tax revenue, 80% of the revenue. Local receipts, 6.9% in FY '24, and state aid 13.2%. And that changes as we collect our local receipts or change our projections. Last slide is just a summary of our expenditures and our appropriations. Everything I just went through is just summarized in this one slide.
Okay.
Any questions before I go on to the budget?
Anyone?
No.
Okay, the FY '24 budget, as I mentioned earlier, the budget total is $133 million. I'm going to go through the overall budget, the town and the school. This first slide gives you an idea of the split in revenue between the town and school. The way this initially is generated, we take the previous year's budget, we take out the excluded debt for that fiscal year, we add back in this excluded debt for FY '24. We project all of our increases in revenue, whether it's property tax revenue, local receipts, and we plug it into the recap, and we come up with a surplus revenue that can be divided between the town and the school. Before we divide between the town and the school, we take out what we believe or project an increase for Shawshene Tech and Essex Aggie. In this case, we're projecting a 6% increase for Shawshene Tech, so we reduce the $4.5 million by $442,000. We are projecting our Essex Aggie assessment to go down, so we add that money back in. The Essex Aggie assessment is based on the number of students that are currently enrolled and what we believe will be there next year. Then we come down to the town and school split of revenue. The school this year will have an amount of $2,104,494, which is approximately 51% of that revenue, net revenue. We minus out all their fixed costs, and then the remainder of $1,627,629 is what they have for their general operating budget of salaries, operating, and capital outlay. The town, again, which is approximately 49% of the net revenue, when you minus out its fixed costs, the amount remaining to fund its budget is $598,997. Just quickly, the school and town health insurance will increase 5%. Premiums will increase 5% next year. Medex will increase 5% also, no increase in dental insurance. And we've accounted for any retirement replacements, which also have an impact to our health insurance. Middlesex retirement assessment for the schools will increase 8.2%, and the towns will increase 12.44%. That's the biggest impact in the budget that we see this year. School Medicare will actually decrease. We funded more than we needed this fiscal year, so we're able to decrease that $44,211. Unemployment insurance also was funded more than needed in FY '23, so that was able to go down $100,000. And liability insurance, the same, was able to go down $226,000. For the town, Medicare will increase $26,659 based on payroll. We're going to see an increase in our property and liability insurance of $51,969.
Mr. Doctor,
Yes.
and any of that property and liability increase related to the North Street and the Trahan schools?
No, the way we plan to approach the North and Trahan, we will keep the liability, general liability insurance on those schools.
Yep.
But we will not put any property insurance on those schools.
Okay.
And I spoke to the insurance company about that.
Yeah.
And they felt that was a good way to go because over the next 6 months, we'll do something with those buildings and we can determine that, but there's no need to put any property on it because if we plan to demolish them, there's no need to.
Sure. Okay.
That can change, but that's the approach we're taking.
So that's just the streets that, not unreasonable.
And newer buildings cost more than the insurance, so new fire station.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, the new elementary school.
New elementary school, so the
And there's all
replacement
other
cost is higher.
Insurance that we have included, so.
that's a really reasonable number.
Yeah, I asked, and we met, they said, use a 10% premium increase, but based on what we budgeted last year, doing a 10% increase in the premium, those are what our impacts are.
Okay.
This next slide is just a breakdown of the overall town budget, it's town and school budget. As you can see, the town budget without exempt debt is $48.1 million. School budget without exempt debt is the $66.1 million. The town budget will increase $2,038,506. The school budget will increase $2,104,494. As you can see in both instances, exempt debt is being reduced. Shawshene Tech, their assessment is projected at $7,811,528, which is the 6% increase I mentioned. And the next is Essex Aggie, which we're projecting a decrease in their assessment. These next few slides, which I won't go over in any detail, just breaks down all the budgets within the town budget and the historical reference to them, as well as the increases that you'll see in each of those areas. So I'll skip through those.
Why is the veterans budget going down?
I'll explain that in a minute. The breakdown of town and school budget. School budget is about 49.58% of the budget. The town is 35.69. Exempt debt in FY23 was 3.8. And then as you can see that the percentage of Essex Aggie, Shawshene, and school exempt debt. You can see the changes that we had in FY24 weren't any major changes in the percentages in each. These next graphs just give you an idea how much of each of the budgets, how much we pay in salaries, both town and school budgets, what the operating breakdown is, what our exempt debt is as a percentage of budget, health insurance and retirement, as you can see, both combined in FY24, close to 18% of the budget, exempt debt being 8% of the budget. So, but our largest factor in all the budgets is salaries. This next slide is specific to the town budget, and the town budget with exempt debt included has a net increase, net its allocations has an increase of $2,012,381. And again, I want to stress that's with exempt debt, and exempt debt is going down. That's what the town budget will increase. This slide just is specific to the town budget. As you can see, the town budget, similar to the budget, the graphs we saw earlier for the overall town and school budget, the largest factor is salary. In FY24, it's 38% of the budget. The operating budget's 18.5. But you can see the health insurance and the retirement jumped up in FY24, close to 25, a little over 25% of the budgets for both of those fixed costs. And exempt debt is 9.2. If you combine all three, it gets close to just what salaries is as far as percentage of the budget.
It's worth noting though, Mr. Montori, and you talked about it in your opening comments about services, the operating budgets are basically the same.
Yeah. Everything level service.
Yeah.
This further breaks down the town budget between the different departments. As you can see, our unclassified budget, which is our fixed cost, is the largest percentage of the budget. Then police, fire, DPW, the big three, the next. They're all fairly close to each other, and then the percentage of each of the other departments, or each of the categories of our budget, what they are as a percentage of the budget. And again, because they were level service budgets, you don't see much of a change in each.
Mm-hmm.
To go into specific changes in the town budget. The town budget Without exempt debt, and net of its allocations increased $2,038,506. Of that, $243,264 was due to salary increases. That includes the 2.25% cost of living increase and any contractual obligations that we had in our departments. Now, there was some large costs within the FY23 budget that we didn't need in FY24 for terminal leave, which is our sick leave buyback payments. So that totaled close to $200,000 that were taken out of the FY24 budget. So that's why you see a lower than normal increase to our salary budget. From an operating standpoint, the budget increased $470,671 on the town side. Without going through these in detail, just general government budget, there were no major changes within that that impacted the increase. I did decrease town council budget based on historic spending. I felt we were able to reduce that by $25,000. That was a big change within this budget. Under the finance department, we were able to have a small increase there, which includes the Munis financial software. Under community service, to go to select board member Wellman's question, there's a reduction of $100,134 in this area. For veterans benefits, we looked at the historic spending of our veterans benefits and medical, and we were able to reduce them, those categories, but we still kept them high enough and over what we've spent in the past in case there's any changes. But based on historic spending, we were able to reduce them. Council on Aging and Facilities didn't have any major increases. Library increased $27,090. Mainly this is to maintain our level of certification with the state to get our library funding. A variety of areas that increased, but nothing specific. Again, we're going to maintain our minimum required funding and standards to gain funding from the state. Planning and development saw a decrease of $8,553, mainly because we took all of the funding that each of the community development departments had for online permitting, and we put that into the town manager's budget. That's why you see an increase in the town manager's budget, because we consolidated all of the costs of our permitting software from these departments, plus we had to increase it because of the cost of the new software. But that's the decrease there. Police budgeting had an increase of $12,839. The police budget had a variety of changes in the department for level service for level service budget. The main area I want to point out, a couple of main areas, we did reduce the professional services by $53,000. In FY23, we put in the budget a cost for an assessment center for promotions. That'll be complete this fiscal year, so that fund is not needed in FY24. A couple of areas that I want to note, there was an increase in community policing supplies within the police budget. Funds were needed to account for the number of canines that we have in the department now. One of them was being funded on a 3-year grant that runs out in FY24. And this is all under the category of all other supplies. We also had an increase in range supplies and ammunition. That was part of that major increase in all other supplies. So those were the big increases in the police budget. Under the fire budget, there's a total increase of $28,818. The big increase in their budget is for utilities for the new fire station, based on what we're trending, that needed to increase. We are going to see a decrease in the professional services for the fire department because we funded an assessment center for promotional exams in that department this year. We will need one next year for captains, but it's less costly than the one that we had this year. The other major decrease in the fire department budget is in uniforms. This year we funded uniforms for 4 new positions that will be in place this year so that the uniforms are not needed next year. And then finally, there is an increase in this budget of a little over $6,000 for a grant match. We received a grant for professional development within the department, and we budgeted for the match in this, on the FY24 budget. DPW, this is where some of the biggest changes were in the operating budget. There's a decrease of $68,132. We took sidewalks out of the engineering budget in FY24. That amount was $250,000. It's not because we're not doing sidewalks, but after discussions with the director and the town engineer, it was felt that the sidewalks would be better placed in the capital budget because it's difficult to spend sidewalk money in a given fiscal year, and we need to spend this money by June 30th. If it's in a warrant article within the capital budget, it can carry over year to year. In addition to that, most sidewalk projects will be greater than the $250,000, so we just felt it was better to include this sidewalk funding within the capital budget. Yep.
For the 250K, was that approved? That was approved in October, is that what we're referring to?
We do have money approved in the October budget, town meeting,
Yeah.
and we will be utilizing that on this current sidewalk project. The operating budget for highway increased, will be increasing FY24. It's basically cost of doing business for supplies, police details. The forestry budget will also increase due to contract services for tree removal, tree trimming, roadside mowing, police details. The biggest increase in the DPW budget will be in fleet maintenance. Fleet maintenance operating will increase $140,735. That's the cost. We'll see a $12,250 increase for equipment maintenance for supplies and maintaining DPW police and facilities vehicles. Gas and diesel will increase $119,000. This is gas and diesel for all town in school vehicles. This increase is due to the cost of gas and diesel fuel that we're seeing. Finally, there will be an increase in staff development within fleet for mechanics recertification. Solid waste collection and disposal. This was one of the larger increases in the budget this year, along with the retirement assessment. We're going to see an increase of $580,447. We are going to have a new contract with Republic Services starting July 1st. We knew the cost was going up. The cost that communities are seeing in the area, those that have bid their disposal services as well as renegotiated contracts, are over 40%. Ours is 39% increase, which is $686,065 increase to the Republic Services contract. The disposal contract will see a decrease, not because our disposal cost per ton is going down, but because within Republic's new contract, they are going to pay for the cost of disposal for our containers. So we were able to reduce that cost by $105,618, giving us the net increase in this budget of $580,447. Fixed costs on our unclassified budget, I mentioned earlier, that's going up $1,413,384. As I mentioned, health insurance will be increasing in our unclassified budgets. Retirement will be increasing 12.44%, and our property liability insurance will be increasing 7.52%, as well as our Medicare tax. Our capital outlay budgets will be increasing $31,137. This is mainly due to the cost of new cruises. That's the only capital outlay that we have, and that's the increase. The allocations that we get from our water, sewer, and cable enterprise will be increasing by $146,075. This helps offset the town general fund budget. The water department increase is mainly because of their retirement assessment, and the remaining sewer and cable are just proportionally increased based on the budgets that they have allocations. Some of the priorities that weren't funded within the FY24 budget. And this list actually is less than what we've had in the past. In the past, you would see on this list additional staffing for the DPW, additional staffing for the police, and additional staffing for the fire department. We were able to remove those this year because of the additions to staffing at the October town meeting that were carried forward in this budget. But as we move forward, there's always going to be a need for additional funding for DPW, for maintaining roads, sidewalks, trees, and drainage, facilities and grounds. As we move forward into the future, we'll need funding for maintaining our buildings and grounds. Police, fire, overtime and training costs will always be an issue that we'll need to keep an eye on for funding to maintain staffing levels. The Council on Aging would like to fund the van drivers within the budget to limit the impact they have on grants. The Council on Aging would like to also fund a transportation coordinator within the budget to alleviate any impact to grants. In the future, one of the things that we're going to need to do is review positions within the town. This year we have requests for upgrades that were denied because we had level service budgets. But in order to keep and attract talented employees, we're going to need to review this area in the future. Additional staffing and operating funds for the school department is always going to be something that we need to look at in the future. And then obviously funding of town capital budgets, whether it's purchasing vehicles, equipment, and maintaining facilities and undertaking projects. These are always going to be something to
Mr. Montreal, do you know when was the last time that we did any kind of compensation analysis across the board?
2016?
Yeah.
6 years, 7 years ago. Okay, thank you.
I'm getting there in a few more slides.
Very good.
The FY24 budget for the schools had an increase, as I mentioned before, of $2,104,494. Their salaries are increasing $1,119,780, which is mainly due to cost of living increases, longevity increases, step increases, and any other contractual obligations. There are included within this budget 2 new custodian positions at the new elementary school and an adjustment counselor who was moved off a grant into the salary account. Our operating budget is increasing $507,849. And this is for general building and office supplies, building maintenance and service contracts, their technology and utilities costs. But also included in this amount is an increase of 10% of transportation and 14% for out-of-school, out-of-district tuitions. There's no change in the capital outlay, and as I mentioned previously, the health insurance will be going up 5%, retirement 8.2%. Property and liability is actually going to be going down. Medicare tax will be going down, and their unemployment will be going down based on the previous year's budget. Shawshene Tech will be increasing $442,162, 6% increase, and we will see a decrease in the Essex Aggie projected budget. This is a breakdown of the school budget in relation to salaries, operating, health insurance, liability insurance, and exempt debt. Again, the major driver, like all graphs we've looked at so far, is salaries and then operating. But health insurance and retirement are big also.
Richard, and not asking you to go back, but a number of slides ago, it said that schools were like 38% of the budget, something like that. And my question for you is, or 49% of the town is 35%. Are Shawshene Tech and Essex Aggie included in that?
No.
No, so that's
No.
school department separately, okay, not just education, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, quickly. Yeah, I believe that was just school standalone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's separated out. I had that question earlier this week from someone.
This next slide just gives you a 5-year projection of our budget. Now, I would not take this to the bank by any means. It is just a projection. It's based on a variety of assumptions. I was looking at it after I finished this slide, and if you change any assumption by 0.5% or 1%, it throws everything off. Okay, so this is just an indication that we're in good financial health this year, next year, and in future years, but obviously any changes to the assumptions to salary increases or operating increase, health insurance, retirement, throws this out of whack. If our revenue doesn't come in as projected, our growth doesn't come in as projected, it throws this all off. As we move into the FY24 budget and future budgets, these are the things we need to keep an eye on. Things like our employee retirement assessments. As you can see, we had a major increase this year. Shocked us when we saw it. Did a lot of work to understand it, but something to keep an eye on because we still have a large unfunded liability. State aid and state and county charges, obviously something we always want to keep an eye on. There's no reason that indicates that state aid will be going down, but state and county charges, depending on some of those large drivers such as charter school assessments and school choice, could change the net aid that we get because our state and county charges increase higher than we project. Federal budget and federal requirement changes, this is something we always want to keep an eye on because we do receive grant funding, whether it's Medicaid reimbursements or other federal funds. But any federal requirements could change that could add cost to us. It was the Affordable Care Act that changed, that had a cost to, in assessments in the past to our healthcare. Any standards that change in any of the environmental standards could impact us. So we just want to keep an eye on that. We don't foresee anything right now, but it's something to keep an eye on. Solid waste and recycling costs. I think we have a good contract that we have in place. We have projected increases in the future with this contract, but there are some limitations and caps. But solid waste and recycling costs in the future are going to be something to watch. In the past contract, we had a current contract that expires June 30th. We had a cap on recycling costs of $60 a ton. The amount to process recycling today is $130 a ton. That cap is no longer in place based on the new contract, and no one has that cap. But recycling is becoming more costly to dispose of than trash itself. And we believe trash will exceed recycling at some point, but those are costs we need to keep an eye on. Impact of the state hospital on public safety services. And this is something this board has been very concerned about and paid attention to, so we need to pay attention to that as things move forward in the future. Shashi Tech assessment, we projected a 6%, but that could change up or down, obviously. We're also hearing that there is talk of possibly a new school for the tech, and how that impacts the town is something we need to keep an eye on. Unfunded liability, our retirement and OPEB liabilities are unfunded. We are meeting our commitments for our retirement, but we're not for our OPEB. We've done better than we have in the past, but again, something to keep an eye on. Our stabilization fund, currently we have a balance of a little over $4.1 million, which is 10.9% of our FY23 budget. That's a good number to be at, that the rating agencies want to see. We're about 10.6% of our FY24 budget. But we know we're going to use funds at this upcoming town meeting. We need a new ambulance, we need a new fire engine, we need some DPW equipment. So the goal always is to utilize the stabilization fund for our one-time expenditures, one-time projects such as sidewalks, and then replenish it in the fall. So the board should keep an eye on this as we move forward into the future. We always want to try to replenish what we use. Town and school capital improvements, whether it's vehicles, roads, sidewalks, drainage, buildings, or technology. We'll never have enough money in a given year to do everything we want to do, but we need to do as much as we can so we don't fall so far behind that it's more costly in the future. And then finally, our current bond rating, is a AA+. We've always had a goal to get AAA bond rating. I'm not sure we'll ever get there, but we always want to strive to reach that goal because it causes us to do all the right things from a financial management standpoint. And then finally, without going through this in detail, this is just the board's financial policy that we follow and we maintain, and it's just good to reiterate what that policy is. And that is it.
Well done, sir.
Yes, I saw many edits I need to take care of in this, which I will before it goes online tomorrow.
Recruitment.
Thank you for that. And I know my colleagues will agree with this comment, but every year that you've managed this process has been a year of continued improvement in terms of the transparency, the level of detail, and the information that's available to residents and also to obviously us as stewards. So I want to commend you for this the presentation. I'm disappointed that it started so late in the evening because many residents probably had other things to tend to tonight, and they may not necessarily see this live. I know you just mentioned you're going to put it on the website. I want to ask if you and our media director can get together, and typically we replay the board's meetings in their entirety. But I'd like to ask if it's at all possible that maybe you edit just this presentation and put it up for people to see as well, so that we can make sure that there's as much ability for residents to see this presentation on the budget in and of itself, instead of having to watch a 2-hour hearing process before they get to it. And that might be helpful for the community.
And just two other quick things. You got to note that it was 2015 was our last study for pay classification.
Thank you.
The other is, in past, and normally you would see this room full of all the department heads.
Yeah.
Who always come to these meetings. I told them this year because of the forecasted weather to stay home. Plus, we're in a smaller room. Well, they all would have been here tonight. But I know they're all watching because they're commenting. So they would have been here in normal circumstances.
Very good. And we thank them for their efforts in the process. It's been a much smoother process in recent years, and that's a credit and testament to the work that goes on behind the scenes here.
I will send out, most likely tomorrow, all the detailed budgets, every department's budget with each of their line items in more detail than what you saw tonight. That'll obviously go on the website also, probably not till Friday. As we finalize everything, we'll go to the finance committee. You're going to see that each department did an excellent job in their budgets. They met the letter of the law when it came to the budget message. They were detailed in their explanations, identifying where there were increases and decreases. I can't say enough about the great work that they did, and they made this year's budget process a great deal easier than it ever has been. So I commend them for all their work. That's why we have a balanced budget, because of that.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have questions, to try to be succinct, and I'll start with Mr. Kratman. If Do you have any comments or questions, sir? Mr. Kratman?
It's muted.
He's having trouble.
Okay.
Hold on, might be on my
All
end.
right, let me
Hold
go
on.
to. yeah,
Go
okay.
around, I'll get to him.
Yep. Mr. Kelly, do you have any comments you want to offer?
Just comments, just being in the private sector, I'm still not convinced that we're out of, the storm might hit us as far as the economy for many reasons, and that's been a hot topic here for the last, at least year or so. So I guess my only comment is, I know, Mr. Montoya, you're gonna keep a pulse on the budget, and so I know we have 4 months, this was the initial draft, so, we still have a little bit of time here to potentially make, but my only ask is we gotta keep a real close pulse on the budget, because it's still, I think there's a lot of uncertainty out there, so I guess that's my only comment, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. Wellman?
Keeping it brief in light of the hour, I just want to thank you and your staff for all the work that's gone into this. I appreciate your conservative projections. 90% of FY22 actuals, things like that, are efficacious and keep us on track. My chief concern is staff retention and development. It's a competitive environment out there, and particularly in the government sector, and I want to be able to keep our folks. So I appreciate your eye in that department and all the others. So it's really impressive. The whole thing is it's quite something. I may have to watch it again myself. I've sat through a few of these over 10 years. So thank you.
Let me go back and try Mr. Kratman again, if he has any comments.
I think we're just trying to reconnect with them, so.
Okay. All right, so my first pass reaction is, at the hour, it's been a long evening, a long day. But I think the level of detail is certainly much appreciated, as I said a few moments ago. I think this budget, just from a reaction perspective, and I think all, if not most of us, sat through individual discussions with you in the recent few weeks here. So I've seen this before, but I think this is what I would characterize as a respectful budget. It encompasses the additional service staffing that we asked town meeting to support, and they did. So we've executed on that, and that is meeting a promise that we made, but it yet considers the economy conditions that Mr. Kelly just referenced. We're not going overboard here. And I know that you do have a watchful eye on everything, because it shows in the level of detail that you've put into preparing the budget, and we always reserve the right to make changes. So I look forward to that opportunity as we go forward. So now I get to listen to myself.
Mark, mute yourself. Yep, perfect. We got your back. We lost
All right.
internet connection.
All right, so Mr. Kratman, you're on video, and I think we can hear you now. I just want to ask if you have any comments or questions on the budget presentation.
No, I was able to listen and watch it, you just couldn't hear me. But the great presentation, I went over the town budget with the town manager. I know there's still a couple of questions we'll be asking in the future, but thank you for putting together the presentation.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, you don't need any action from us tonight.
No, just two quick things. So the board will vote on the budget down the road when we finalize warrant articles.
Yeah.
We'll turn our attention to the review of the budget by the finance committee, and I'll turn my attention to finalizing enterprise fund budgets, which will be presented in mid-February. And I just want to follow up on something Mr. Kelly said about the economy. I share the same concerns. I think we have enough safety nets within the budget that we're presenting if anything does happen. We still have the DPW project to bid and decide if we can move forward with that, and that's within this budget. The cost estimate has us within budget, but the question's going to be what the interest rates are going to be, and we're going to start working on that also. So there's still a lot, but we were happy that we were able to move forward with filling positions, but we're still being very cautious as we move forward with this. And as Select Board Member Wellman said, There's a lot of conservative approaches to the estimates that will help us if something happens. And so we're comfortable at this point, but we're watching it very closely. We've talked about a lot, the two of us.
I thank you. No,
And I share your concerns. That's it, but thank you.
thank you.
All right, well done, well done. Okay, let's try to bring the plane in for a landing here. We have just a couple more items to address. We have a town council invoice. You want to speak to that, Mr. Montori?
Sure, we just have a town council invoice in the amount of $2,422.50 from December 16th, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, and I'd recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion made by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Kelly to approve town council invoice dated January 16, 2023. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes aye. That would be 4 votes in favor, none opposed. We have no minutes tonight. I'll start off with board member reports, and I will say that I'm going to reserve my comments to the next meeting.
So moved.
Mr. Kelly, do you have any
I'm
comments?
good, thank you.
Ms. Wellman?
I just wanted to say that we have a Black History Month film series that we're doing in partnership with the library and the school department, and we're showing Harriet on February 7th at 6:30 at the library, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, February 23rd at the high school auditorium, and Just Mercy at 6:30 at the library on February 26th, and these are all free and open to the public. I think Mr. Montori and the school department and the library, especially staff Robert Hayes, for all their help setting that up, the diversity, equity, inclusion group. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr.
Oh, Mr.
Kratman,
Kratman.
do you have any comments?
I'll save my board member reports for our next meeting as well.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I just want to note before I ask for a motion to adjourn, our next board meeting will be on February 15th, 2023. But this board will also be having a working session on February 8th, starting at 6 p.m. So that's not a televised meeting. There'll be no public hearings or anything like that scheduled. It's a working session for the benefit of the board. It is a public meeting, but I just want to make sure that folks are aware of that, and I want to remind my colleagues. The agenda for this evening notes the next public meeting, or I should say business meeting, for February 15, 2023. So with that, I will thank people for their patience, those in the room. A long evening, but a lot was accomplished in many ways, and I appreciate the cooperation my colleagues afforded me while we worked through the night. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. We are adjourned. Have a great evening. Stay safe.